Chapter 191. Fong Bei Bei did not have class that day. Poplar Fruit had told her a few days ago that he would start tutoring her today. Poplar Fruit carried Kiki in his arms, carried Kiki's baby stroller in one hand, and carried a small bag on his back. He walked out of the apartment with a smile on his face and walked to a nearby building. He rented an indoor parking space in the neighborhood. It cost 400 yuan a month. Compared to the 80 yuan a month parking space by the roadside, it was quite expensive. However, for his beloved car, it did not matter if it was a little more expensive. Driving out of the garage, the Land Rover's domineering exterior gradually peeled away from the darkness. The neighbors downstairs who were enjoying the shade under the trees all looked at it as it gradually left. When the car was out of sight, a man wearing a black baseball cap poked half of his body out from the crowd and looked in the direction of the car leaving. It was that strange man. He had appeared again. The strange man sighed softly. This was not good. He was defeated by this car again. Many times, he had seen Poplar Fruit walk out of the apartment with a smirk on his face. He had guessed that Poplar Fruit was going to do something good. Unfortunately, he could not catch up to Poplar Fruit's new Land Rover every time. The Land Rover was too fast. With his small electric bicycle, there was no way he could catch up to it. I have to get a car. The strange man clenched his fist. Otherwise, he would not be able to complete this mission. Thinking about the cash in Liang Zhenglin's password-protected suitcase, the strange man's heart was itching. Poplar Fruit drove to the school. Using the pass given to him by the dean, he swaggered through the gate and found a free parking space. After parking the car, Poplar Fruit went to the female dormitory to pick up Fong Bei Bei. Come in, it's here. Poplar Fruit smiled, pushed open the door, and walked in to turn on the lights. Wow! Where did you find this house? Fong Bei Bei walked in with Kiki in her arms. She looked around the house and exclaimed, "It's just like my old teacher's house." Old teacher? Poplar Fruit asked curiously. He's my teacher's teacher. He's retired. I went with my teacher to visit him last time. Fong Bei Bei explained, Your place is just a little smaller than my old teacher's place. Look at the furniture, it's so quaint. You don't like this kind of decoration? Poplar Fruit looked at her pretty face and asked. No. Fong Bei Bei took Kiki's hand, which was playing with her hair, and kissed it. Kiki giggled, and then she said, I think a house like this should belong to the old keeper. Don't tell me you want to become the old keeper? Fong Bei Bei giggled and said, If you become the old keeper, you will be so stubborn. I won't dare to let you teach me any more. Poplar Fruit clapped his hands and said, That's right, if you didn't remind me, I wouldn't want to get up. We lack a ruler. If you don't study well, if you don't listen carefully, you can hit the palm of your hand. Fong Bei Bei was not afraid of Poplar Fruit's threat. She waved her hand and said, Hit me. If you hit me, I'll take your daughter away. Is that right? Fong Bei Bei held Kiki in front of her and asked, Kiki, do you want to go somewhere else with Sister Bei Bei to play? Ignore your father? Okay. Kiki clapped her hands and happily said, Ignore Papa. Poplar Fruit covered his heart and shook his head with a sigh. He had a heartless daughter, which really broke his heart. After tutoring Fong Bei Bei, Poplar Fruit put away his kind face. He forced Fong Bei Bei to put the unwilling Kiki into the baby stroller and left 2 toys for Kiki to play by herself. Don't make trouble, Poplar Fruit said to Kiki. Play quietly by yourself. If you don't listen, I'll leave you at home and not take you out next time. Kiki pouted and was very unhappy. How can you talk like that? Fong Bei Bei pushed Poplar Fruit away and said to Kiki with a smile, Kiki, you are the most obedient baby. Today you have to be obedient. Sister Bei Bei will study for a while, and then I'll play with you, okay? Kiki was happy this time. She nodded hard and said loudly, How? Poplar Fruit stood in front of the blackboard with a college English textbook. He patted the table and shouted, It's time for class, time for class. Fong Bei Bei reluctantly sat on the opposite side of the table and took out her textbook from her bag. You're definitely not liked by students. I've studied your test paper. Poplar Fruit said, there are many reasons why you did poorly on the test. For example, you didn't pass the grammar test, you were slow in doing the questions, and you chose the listening test randomly. I didn't understand. Fong Bei protested, I didn't know how to do it, so of course I chose randomly. Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Bei. She was wearing a pink long-sleeved checkered shirt today. Poplar Fruit looked down and could see the rise and fall of the mountains. However, he was not moved and said seriously, actually, all the problems in the end are because you have too little vocabulary. Without vocabulary, you can't even understand the questions. How can you do it quickly and correctly? You don't memorize words, and you don't usually read them. Poplar Fruit hit the nail on the head. Memorizing words is so boring. If you have the time to memorize words, you might as well do 2 more math questions. Fong Bei held her chin with her left hand and spun a pen with her right hand. The thin pen spun on her slender fingertips, sometimes left and sometimes right, but it was as if it was glued to the pen and wouldn't fall off. This is the crux of the problem. Poplar Fruit laughed. I designed a new course to help you memorize words according to your situation. Poplar Fruit pressed the remote control and an article was projected on the screen. This article was impossible to find the same article in the world because it was written by Poplar Fruit himself. Based on the situation of Fong Bei's English test papers, he summarized the basic English words that Fong Bei needed to master. Then, he chose a few words and compiled them into this short article. Can you understand it? Poplar Fruit laughed. This is a short story. Fong Bei looked carefully and said, I can understand most of it. That's right. Poplar Fruit laughed. Is it because you don't understand the meaning of these words? He pressed the remote control and a few words were highlighted with a red line. Fong Bei kept nodding and said in surprise, Yes, how did you know? Because this was added on purpose. Poplar Fruit didn't explain to her, but pointed to one of the sentences and said, You can understand the meaning of this sentence and the next 2 sentences, right? Fong Bei nodded. Poplar Fruit said, Then the word in the middle, can you guess the meaning of the sentence? Scan. Fong Bei looked at Poplar Fruit and asked, It's almost done. Yonghua smiled. Scan, it means to browse. Of course, you can also use it in other places. For example, you can go to a printing shop and scan it. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 192. Poplar Fruit was indeed worthy of being called Poplar Fruit's teacher. With such a tailored tutorial, even Fong Bei, who was not interested in English, could quickly immerse herself in it. Although Poplar Fruit had only taught a short essay in an hour, Poplar Fruit was very detailed and analyzed and interpreted it in depth. From a small essay, Fong Bei could learn more than she could before to do several sets of questions. She was shocked when she looked back at it herself. In fact, Poplar Fruit's teaching method was based on New Concept English, but it was more effective than New Concept English. After all, the short story he wrote was more interesting and the new words in it were more targeted for Fong Bei. Unfortunately, this method was only suitable for Fong Bei for the time being. If others were to learn from this essay, they might not gain as much as Fong Bei. Fong Bei had been complaining about Poplar Fruit before, but now she was convinced. Poplar Fruit patiently explained to her over and over again, which made her look at him in a new light. Okay, let's review these few words, then you read this essay with me twice. Poplar Fruit smiled. Poplar Fruit's American accent was very pure, and Fong Bei's English accent was also imitating the American accent. After all, American dramas were popular in China, and compared to the British accent, the American accent was much more familiar. However, Fong Bei's pronunciation was very problematic. Many of her pronunciations were not standard, and her pronunciation of words was also off. Poplar Fruit was like teaching a primary school student, repeatedly teaching her. Kiki, who was sitting at the side quietly playing with her toys, raised her head and looked at her father and sister Bei in a daze. Just as Poplar Fruit was teaching Fong Bei Bei how to pronounce, Kiki's mouth was also moving. Poplar Fruit taught for a while, and inadvertently turned his head and saw Kiki's movements. He laughed and pointed at Kiki and Fong Bei Bei, saying, "Look, Kiki is learning faster than you." Seeing that their attention was focused on her, Kiki grinned and waved her hand, smiling. "I'm not learning anymore." Fong Bei Bei threw the textbook and laughed. Intermission. She ran over, picked up Kiki, and said, "Kiki, tell me, is Sister Bei Bei very stupid?" She had just started learning English. Although she learned quickly, it also showed her ignorance. Fong Bei Bei felt that she had been hit again. Kiki babbled and reached out to pinch Fong Bei Bei's face, but did not answer. Poplar Fruit also put down the book and went to the kitchen to get some hot water to brew tea. Regular classes had a 10-minute break, so it was not a bad thing to have an intermission now. "I want to drink water," Fong Bei Bei shouted from the side. Poplar Fruit poured a cup of water for her, and also held down Fong Bei Bei's hand, and said with a smile, "It's still boiling, wait for it to cool down." With just a gentle touch, Fong Bei Bei's hand gave Poplar Fruit a very slippery feeling. "Jean." Kiki leaned on Fong Bei Bei's shoulder and looked around, looking around. Jean didn't come," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "It's at home." "Why didn't you bring it here?" Fong Bei Bei complained. "It's been too naughty recently, and I was afraid that it would not be safe in the car," Poplar Fruit explained. "Next time you bring it out with the bag," Fong Bei Bei said. "It's lonely to leave it alone at home." "It's a dog," Poplar Fruit said. Looking at Fong Bei Bei and Kiki's faces, Poplar Fruit had to change his words and said, Okay, I'll bring it out with me next time." "Let's play Legend of the Three Kingdoms?" Fong Bei Bei suddenly said excitedly after drinking the water. "Legend of the Three Kingdoms?" Poplar Fruit had heard of this game before. It had suddenly become popular in the past 2 years, but he had never played it. He laughed and said, "I don't know how to play." "If you don't know how to play, I'll teach you." Fong Bei Bei took out a box of cards from her bag, put it on the table, and looked back at Poplar Fruit with a smile. Poplar Fruit scratched his head, took Kiki over, and said, "You still have them?" "Of course, our dormitory loves to play." Fong Bei Bei laughed as she sorted the cards. "How do 2 people play?" Poplar Fruit had never played before, but he knew that this game seemed to be played by many people. Usually, it's played with 8 or 5 people. 2 people is also fine. As long as you calculate quickly, you can also win. Fong Bei Bei smiled slyly. Poplar Fruit felt like he had fallen into a trap. There are a total of 4 identities in Legend of the Three Kingdoms: Lord, Traitor, Loyal Minister, and Traitor. Fong Bei Bei explained to Poplar Fruit, the Lord and Loyal Minister are together. Their mission is to eliminate the traitor and traitor, while the traitor's mission is to overthrow the Lord. As for the traitor, it's more complicated. He has to eliminate everyone except the Lord, and finally he has to fight the Lord alone. At the very beginning, we have to draw an identity card. If you draw the Lord, you have to show your identity card. If you draw other identities, you can't let other players see your identity card. Fong Bei Bei pulled out the identity card and showed it to Poplar Fruit. "Then, what if one of us draws the Lord and the other draws the Loyal Minister?" Poplar Fruit asked. "If 2 people play, then only the Lord and Traitor will be drawn." Fong Bei Bei drew back 3 Loyal Minister and 4 Traitor cards. "I'll tell you the rules first, and then we'll talk about the special ways 2 people can play," Fong Bei Bei said. "First of all, other than the 10 identity cards you saw just now, we also have 25 general cards, 10 stamina cards, and more than 100 game cards," Fong Bei Bei explained patiently, and Poplar Fruit listened carefully. For Poplar Fruit, memorizing and understanding the rules was not difficult. Fong Bei Bei only needed to explain it once, and Poplar Fruit was eager to play. Chow Chow, Sun Quan, and Hua Tuo are too powerful in a duel. These 3 cards can't be used. Fong Bei Bei drew the 3 cards and put them aside. Kiki saw it, stretched out her hand and said, "Yes." Poplar Fruit hugged her back and smiled. Don't move. Don't break Sister Bebe's cards. It's okay. Fong Bebe was about to pass a card to Kiki with a smile, but Poplar Fruit quickly stopped her. He said, You really can't let her play everything. Kiki wants to stuff everything into her mouth and tear them apart. Last time, my friend's poker cards were ruined by her. Poplar Fruit was talking about the time Song Jiwen came to play cards with Poplar Fruit. He liked to put the calabash cards on the ground, but they disappeared in the blink of an eye. When he turned around, he found out that Kiki had secretly taken them and torn them apart. Kiki was very unhappy. The duck in her mouth flew away again. She groaned and pulled her father's hair. Poplar Fruit was hoarse because of her. Do you understand the rules? Fong Bebe took back the cards and asked. I understand. Poplar Fruit wanted to rub his hands, but he patted Kiki's hands and said confidently, Come on, let's start. Fong Bebe smiled strangely and said, Okay. Begging for monthly votes. Begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 193. If Lin Xingshan was here, she would definitely pull Poplar Fruit to the side and tell him why Fong Bebe would carry a legend of the Three Kingdoms with her. However, Lin Xingshan didn't need to say anything. Poplar Fruit once again silently put down his cards. He even ignored Kiki's harassment. This wasn't how it should be played. Poplar Fruit wasn't trying to say that Fong Bebe was cheating. Fong Bebe wasn't that unethical. She was seriously beating Poplar Fruit again and again. Too strong. This calculation, the control of HP, and the choice of card combinations had reached a flawless level. Poplar Fruit could remember every card they played, but Fong Bebe still beat Poplar Fruit without a doubt. Thinking back to the previous game, Poplar Fruit beat Fong Bebe to critical health with half of his health. In the end, Fong Bebe played 6 cards at once. Zhao Yun's crossbow, Taisha Kill, and Big Dot. Poplar Fruit was once again defeated by Fong Bebe. Yes, Fong Bebe carried cards. It wasn't that she liked to play, but that none of her roommates or friends dared to compete with her. Fong Bebe used her genius mathematical talent on the legend of the Three Kingdoms. No one could resist her. Poplar Fruit didn't care about the first 2 games he lost. He even wanted to win the next game. However, he didn't stop once he lost. The game mentioned above was the closest Poplar Fruit had come to victory. Poplar Fruit felt that he was about to touch the finish line, but in the end, he was dragged behind. The feeling of being defeated was even worse. I can't play anymore. Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Bebe, who was getting more and more spirited and excited. His heart trembled. If he couldn't even beat a girl in a game, he wouldn't be able to survive. Okay. Halftime is over. Let's continue studying. Poplar Fruit quickly put away the Legend of the Three Kingdoms cards. He even snatched the cards in Fong Bebe's hands. He was afraid that Fong Bebe would start dealing cards again. Fong Bebe finally regained her confidence. Just as she was getting excited, she was interrupted by Poplar Fruit. She lowered her head, dejectedly pulled over her notebook and looked at Poplar Fruit. Originally, watching Poplar Fruit and the rest play cards, Kiki was a little confused and sleepy. Poplar Fruit walked back to his original position and acted like a teacher. Kiki began to feel energetic again. Although she was lying in the baby stroller, Kiki still raised her head and listened attentively. Just now, we were reading an essay and learning words. Let's change the way we learn next. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, Let's learn English grammar. Ah. Fong Bebe's hand, which was supporting her chin, suddenly slipped and hit her head. Grammar is so boring. It's so hard to learn. Fong Bebe clenched her hands into fists and put them under her chin to make a cute begging gesture. Uncle, can we not learn grammar? Kiki saw this and giggled. Fong Bebe's current appearance was indeed very cute. She blinked her eyes and pouted her mouth, which was pink and tender and very tempting. However, Poplar Fruit was unmoved. He smiled and said, Actually, grammar is not that hard to learn. You can try to learn it from me. What we are learning today is past completion. I saw that in your test paper, many of the multiple choice questions were wrong here, Poplar Fruit said. Compared to other teachers, Poplar Fruit did not have any innovation in explaining grammar. It was only because he taught Fong Bei Bei one-on-one that he explained in detail. He also repeatedly gave examples to Fong Bei Bei to explain things that she did not understand. For grammar, you just have to memorize it. Remember the basic points. The rest can be slowly perfected in actual combat. When you can easily use it, you can forget what I said before. Poplar Fruit pressed the remote control and a picture popped up. It was a GIF. Fong Bei Bei was stunned for 10 seconds before she finished looking at it. She laughed and said, "Where did you get this picture? It's so funny. I saw it on Weibo." Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "You don't have to care about the source of the picture. We don't have the copyright anyway. The purpose of showing you this picture is to let you look at the picture and speak. You can say one sentence or two sentences, but you have to use the past completion that I just taught you." Poplar Fruit patted the screen and said, "Ah, I still have to make sentences?" Fong Bei Bei said reluctantly. "That's right." Poplar Fruit kindly reminded her, "Didn't I just teach you some new words? Do you still remember? You can actually use them." "I don't really remember." Fong Bei Bei shook her head and said. Poplar Fruit was already prepared. He pressed the remote control and the new words that he just learned all appeared on the left side of the picture, but there was no explanation. Fong Bei Bei frowned, thought for a while, and asked, "Even one sentence is fine?" Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "One sentence is fine, as long as you use it correctly." Fong Bei Bei hesitated for a while before she squeezed out a sentence. It was indeed a new word. "No." Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, "The context of this sentence shouldn't be in the past completion." How could his question be so simple? Fong Bei Bei said, "Then what should it be?" Poplar Fruit stretched out his index finger and shook it as if he was asking for a beating. He said, "I can't tell you yet. You have to think about it yourself." "Humph, weird uncle." Fong Bei Bei angrily made a face at him. She couldn't do anything to Poplar Fruit and could only continue to rack her brains to think. After trying 2 more times, Poplar Fruit reluctantly let her pass. "Reluctantly?" Fong Bei Bei said unconvinced, "What's your standard answer?" Poplar Fruit waved his hand and smiled, "There's no standard answer. This is just like an essay. There's a score, but there's no standard answer. If you get 100 points, you just barely pass." Poplar Fruit gestured. "But other people's essays all have model essays." Fong Bei Bei shouted. Yonghua smiled and said, "Let me give you an analysis of how you should say those 3 sentences." After analyzing the 3 sentences, Fong Bei Bei finally nodded her head. Poplar Fruit explained it very carefully. Fong Bei Bei also felt that the sentences she created were too messy and too dry. Let's look at the next picture. Poplar Fruit pressed a button and a new picture popped up. "There's more?" Fong Bei Bei said frantically. During this period of learning, the boredom was mixed with fun. When the fun was separated, it was all boring. Fong Bei Bei practiced 4 pictures in a row. She felt like she was going crazy. Finally, Yonghua's pictures were finished. "Humph." Fong Bei Bei imitated Kiki and protested with a nasal sound. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "Don't feel bad. This time's grammar lesson ends here. Look at the PowerPoint. It's already the end." Fong Bei Bei pondered for a while and suddenly realized that she really remembered how to use the past perfect tense. If she was given another essay to write, she could also use the past perfect tense skillfully. Poplar Fruit is too magical, right? How did he know that she could learn it after learning 5 pictures? Fong Bei Bei looked suspiciously at Poplar Fruit. He was a very normal person. She didn't see him holding a feather fan. It must be a coincidence. I won't write the detailed plot of the game. Begging for monthly votes. Begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. greater than over equal to. Chapter 194. While Poplar Fruit was feeding Kiki, Fong Bei jumped up and yelled, "Intermission, intermission." "It's already lunch break." Poplar Fruit laughed. "Is it that boring?" Fong Bei took out her phone and tapped on it. She browsed Weibo and casually said, "No, you taught me well. I just feel annoyed when I see English characters." "Alright, uncle, do you have Weibo?" Fong Bei blinked and looked at Poplar Fruit. "Yes, you can search Kiki's dad," Poplar Fruit said. "Pfft, why are you so funny?" Fong Bei laughed. She quickly found Poplar Fruit on Weibo. "Hey, you're AV?" Fong Bei read it out. A well-known translator translated the work, The Biography of Steve Jobs. "Yo, uncle, you're a celebrity." "Hey, it's all because of the press conference last time," Poplar Fruit said casually. For Poplar Fruit, he didn't like to be famous. At that time, he was being chased and interviewed, and the feeling of the spotlight flashing was really not good. "You have quite a lot of fans on Weibo. 306,072. Fong Bei said with great interest. As expected of a math student, she was able to accurately read a number down to the single digits. "They're all here for Kiki. Look at the replies below." "Kiki has more fans than me," Poplar Fruit laughed. "Who told you to post Kiki's photos on Weibo?" Fong Bei laughed. "But the photos you took are really good. Did you take them with your phone?" "Yeah." "Why don't you buy a DSLR?" Fong Bei asked doubtfully. She had a DSLR camera herself. When Poplar Fruit first met her by the artificial lake in school, she was holding a DSLR camera. "It's not convenient," Poplar Fruit explained with a smile. "It's troublesome to carry it around, and I have to upload it to the computer to process it. Look at the quality of my phone, it's pretty good. I can take photos and upload them to the computer. Isn't that nice?" "That's true." Fong Bei saw that Poplar Fruit had put down the milk bottle and her phone. She took the box from the Romance of the Three Kingdoms and said happily, "Shall we continue to play?" Poplar Fruit struggled in his heart for a while. Looking at Fong Bei's big expectant eyes, he agreed. In the end, there was no need to guess. Poplar Fruit was once again defeated. "Want to play a few more rounds?" At noon, Fong Bei wasn't sleepy at all. She was full of energy. On the other hand, Kiki had fallen asleep at some point. Poplar Fruit walked over and pulled a small blanket over Kiki. He was afraid that she would catch a cold after falling asleep. He thought to himself that he definitely couldn't continue playing Romance of the Three Kingdoms. It was too torturous to play with a math genius like Fong Bei. He couldn't find an excuse to continue studying like before. There definitely wouldn't be any more classes at noon. Moreover, if he continued studying, the efficiency would decrease. What should he do? Poplar Fruit glanced at the computer. When he saw the Warcraft 3 icon on the desktop, his eyes lit up. Got it. He turned to Fong Bei and said, "Romance of the Three Kingdoms is more fun with more people. It's too boring with just the two of us." Fong Bei was a little discouraged. She laid on the table and asked, "Then what do we do? I don't have the habit of taking a nap at noon. It's so boring." "Have you played Warcraft 3 before?" Poplar Fruit asked in return. "I have," Fong Bei said straightforwardly. As a science student, she chatted with a lot of boys. Fong Bei would also try some of the boys' games. "But you only have one computer. We won't be able to play, right?" Fong Bei asked curiously. "Who said we're playing games?" Poplar Fruit blinked his right eye and said, "We don't play games. We design games." Fong Bei was confused by Poplar Fruit's words. She asked, "Design games? What do you mean? You know how to program?" "I don't." Poplar Fruit shook his head. Fong Bei said, "I know a little. But that's just a simple calculation program. It's far from designing games." Poplar Fruit smiled and explained, The game we're designing is a card game like Romance of the Three Kingdoms. There's no need to program or make graphics. What we need is your computing power. How can we design this game to be fairer? Fong Bei was interested. She sat up straight and said, "That sounds interesting. Come and sit. Tell me how to do it." She patted the chair beside her and pulled Poplar Fruit over to sit beside her. It was the first time Poplar Fruit was so close to Fong Bei. Fong Bei's hair gave off a faint fragrance. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but sniff. Poplar Fruit sat up straight and looked straight ahead. He said to Fong Bei, "My idea is to design a card game similar to Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Think about it. The setting of Romance of the Three Kingdoms is the three kingdoms of Wei, Shu, and Wu. There are many characters in it. We're going to replace the background story of Warcraft. Isn't there a lot of characters in Warcraft as well?" "A lot." Fong Bei didn't read the background story of Warcraft. She asked curiously. "Yeah, there's a lot. That world is even more magnificent than the Three Kingdoms." Poplar Fruit said, "It's okay. I can help with the character design. The information is all in my head." "Is it just transplanting the gameplay of Romance of the Three Kingdoms? Then it's not that challenging?" Fong Bei asked. "No. We're going to design a new gameplay." Poplar Fruit laughed. "Romance of the Three Kingdoms is suitable for friends to play when there are many people around. It won't be fun if you're sitting face to face with me. So, what we're going to design is a game where two people fight." "Yeah. Go on." Fong Bei picked up a pen and wrote it down seriously. She hadn't been this serious when she was learning English. Actually, it's similar to magic. We can design a lot of cards and let the players combine them into their own set of cards. Then, they can fight against others. Poplar Fruit explained. "Yu-Gi-Oh!" Fong Bei's eyes lit up as she exclaimed. "Yeah, it's similar to these." Poplar Fruit thought for a while and said, "However, we have to have our own style. For example, we can continue the design of Warcraft. There's health and mana. If you don't have enough mana, you can't cast spells." Poplar Fruit said, "It's not the same. In the cards, if your design is too complicated, it'll be confusing. The simpler the better." Fong Bei pointed out the loophole in Poplar Fruit's design. Poplar Fruit pondered for a while and said, "How about this? We'll give different cards different mana values. The players will have to use their own mana to arrange different combinations of cards." "That works," Fong Bei said happily. Poplar Fruit laughed. "Then let's start designing the game? I'll design the characters and their skills. You calculate the health and mana values." "Okay." Without further ado, Fong Bei rolled up her sleeves and took out a thick draft paper from her bag. She began to list out formulas. Begging for monthly votes. Begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the humble class. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 195. Poplar Fruit looked at her writing a bunch of numbers and felt a little dizzy. He smiled, stood up, opened the door and walked outside. Not far from the teacher's apartment, there was a food street with people coming and going. Because it was close to Higashiyama University's dormitory, all the food stalls were open for business even at noon. There were even a few Shijiang businessmen at the intersection selling barbecue skewers. At this time, there were still a lot of students coming to buy food. It could be seen how good the student business was. Poplar Fruit came to the dumpling restaurant that he used to frequent when he was studying. This dumpling restaurant was run by a northeastern family. Although their dumplings were not thin and full of fillings, they were still full of fillings. They were dipped in a special vinegar sauce and tasted delicious. The dumpling skin was very soft but not easy to break. The dumplings were not bulging, but there were still 18 dumplings for 10 yuan each. He didn't expect the northeastern aunt to recognize him. "Yo! Xiaoyang, long time no see. Why are you back today?" "I recently rented a house here. When I have time, I will come over and walk around." Poplar Fruit stood at a table and said to the northeastern ant with a smile. The ant carefully looked at Poplar Fruit and said in surprise, "Hey, Xiaoyang, I haven't seen you for more than a year. You seem to have grown taller?" This was really a mystery. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, "I don't know. Maybe it's because I often go to work?" He was just talking nonsense. Staying at home all day, how could that be called often going to work? Today, another Chinese cabbage and lean meat dumpling? The northeastern ant still remembered that Poplar Fruit always ordered Chinese cabbage and lean meat dumplings every time he came. No, 2 Chinese cabbage and lean meat dumplings and 1 Chinese leek and lean meat dumpling. Take it away, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Okay, wait a moment. The northeastern ant quickly picked up a few plastic lunchboxes and packed the dumplings for Poplar Fruit. She shook open the plastic bag and scooped a spoonful of vinegar. She twisted her fingers and tied a knot. After 2 more times, the ant packed 3 bags of dipping sauces and finally threw them into a big bag and handed it to Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit handed over 100 yuan. The northeastern ant gave him change. Poplar Fruit said with a smile, "It seems that in the past few years, the price of dumplings here didn't increase." The northeastern ant wiped the towel with her hand and said with a smile, "It's okay. As long as the children eat happily, we won't lose money." When he got home, Fong Beibei she hurriedly said, "Where did you go?" Yonghua looked at Chi-Chi who was still sleeping soundly and asked, "What's wrong? What happened? Why did you leave all this to me and sneak away?" Fong Beibei said angrily, "I just did some calculations and found that we still need a basic value, or at least a range, so that we can calculate the best function value. Please don't argue about this noun. What's a value?" Poplar Fruit was confused. "It's..." Fong Beibei was about to pick up the paper on the table to explain, but she was stopped by Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit gently pulled Fong Beibei's arm and smiled. "There's no rush. Let's have lunch first, and I'll slowly calculate it with you." Fong Beibei obediently followed Poplar Fruit to the dining table. Looking at Poplar Fruit opening the plastic lunchbox and revealing the white dumplings, she asked in puzzlement, "Dumplings for lunch? Did you make them?" Fong Beibei, who was intoxicated by the mathematical formula, was a little silly. "How could I make them?" Poplar Fruit laughed. "Didn't I just go downstairs? I bought them at the north gate." Poplar Fruit asked uncertainly, "Why, you don't like dumplings?" "It's okay." Fong Beibei took a pair of disposable chopsticks and sat down. She poked the table, took out the wrapping paper, and said, "I think, since you have a kitchen here, why don't you cook? If you don't know how to cook, I can cook. It's a waste to buy it outside." He didn't expect Fong Beibei to be so thrifty. She was the first girl Poplar Fruit knew who could say something like that. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, "I didn't buy anything in the kitchen here, and I haven't cooked yet. Maybe next time?" Fong Beibei tore open the lid of a plastic lunchbox and poured the dipping sauce inside. She picked up a dumpling, dipped it, and was about to put it into her mouth when she looked at Poplar Fruit, who was still standing there looking at her. She asked curiously, "Why are you standing there? Sit down and eat together." Poplar Fruit pulled out a chair and sat beside Fong Beibei. Fong Beibei helped him remove a pair of disposable chopsticks and handed it to him. She said, "In the future, cook at home. Don't always eat outside. It's not hygienic, and it's not environmentally friendly." Although Poplar Fruit didn't eat outside often, he still nodded. After eating the dumplings, Poplar Fruit accompanied Fong Beibei to study the settings of the new card game. "Do you think we should use 100 as the total HP?" Fong Beibei held the draft paper and asked Poplar Fruit with her head tilted. Poplar Fruit noticed that Fong Beibei's hair had grown a lot longer. From his angle, he could see the sunlight outside the house. Under the sunlight, her hair was distinct and reflected a faint halo. "Isn't 100 too much?" Poplar Fruit said. Although he was peeking, he was still seriously thinking about the problem. He said, "It's too troublesome to do a lot of calculations like this. It's best if it's within 10. That way, anyone can deal with it easily." 100 isn't much? Fong Bei muttered. It's easy to calculate. Poplar Fruit reached out and patted Fong Bei's soft shoulder. He smiled and said, Bei, not everyone is as calculative as you. Fong Bei glared at Poplar Fruit's hand and said cautiously, Weird uncle, are you taking advantage of me? Poplar Fruit had no choice but to withdraw his hand awkwardly. Within 10, then there won't be many changes? Fong Bei said with her chin in her hands. We can learn from Legend of the Three Kingdoms and Yu-Gi-Oh! Poplar Fruit smiled and said, Everyone's HP is higher, but the HP of the cards is maintained within 10. You mean, players have HP too? Fong Bei's eyes lit up. That's right. Poplar Fruit nodded and said, Players have HP too, and so do cards. Then how do we win? Fong Bei asked. When the player's HP is reduced to 0, they win. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, To make it easier to calculate, the player's HP shouldn't be too high. If it's 100, it'll take too long to play. Let's see if it can be reduced to 50. Then if I directly attack the player's HP, won't it be easy to win? Fong Bei asked. This was also a problem. Poplar Fruit thought for a while, and combined it with other games. He suggested, How about this? Some cards can directly attack the player's body, and some cards can't bypass the opponent's card to attack the player. Fong Bei said thoughtfully, That means, we have to defeat the opponent's card on the field. Begging for monthly votes. Begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to smash the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 196. Although Poplar Fruit was not good at mathematics, he could always come up with a lot of novel ideas in his mind. For example, he could define different characters for the players. With Poplar Fruit's understanding of the backstory of World of Warcraft, he could easily design characters for the players such as mage, priest, and so on. Then, he had a brainwave and proposed to design a unique skill for each character. This unique skill could be used once in every round. For example, a character like the shaman could randomly summon a monster with special characteristics through totem summoning. He and Fong Bei just happened to complement each other. Fong Bei's super powerful calculation ability was able to quickly find the problems with Poplar Fruit's ideas and urge Poplar Fruit to correct them. In just one afternoon, a rough framework of the game had begun to take shape. Of course, as the design continued, there would be constant modifications, but the general model of the game could already be seen. Kiki took a long nap. When she woke up, she did not cry in her father's arms. Perhaps she wanted to be more well-behaved in front of Sister Bei. However, seeing that Fong Bei had been talking to her father, Kiki began to feel a little impatient. She stretched out her small hand and raised it high, wanting to cover her father's mouth. Okay. Poplar Fruit gently bit Kiki's small hand. He did not mind that it was dirty. He smiled and said, You've rested enough. Let's start learning. Ah. Fong Bei said discouragingly, Learning English again. She rolled her eyes and stretched out her arms towards Kiki, pleading, Uncle Yang, can I help you take care of Kiki? Seeing that Fong Bei was finally willing to talk to her, Kiki suddenly became excited. She wanted to jump into Poplar Fruit's arms and did not forget to shout, Shopping. Poplar Fruit carried his daughter into Fong Bei's arms. It was inevitable that there would be some physical contact. He smiled and said, You can help me take care of Kiki, but you still have to go to class. It's so boring. Fong Bei raised Kiki and pouted. Didn't Kiki say that she wants to go shopping? Let's go shopping and you'll stay here alone, okay? Shopping. Kiki excitedly waved her small hands. The two of them sang the same tune. Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, Not yet. You still haven't finished learning today. Fong Bei said dejectedly, Why are you so stubborn? I hate this kind of teacher the most. Kiki, you're annoying, aren't you? Kiki looked at Fong Bei blankly. She stuffed her fingers into her mouth and did not know how to answer. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, Okay, it's just an hour of learning. We'll go play after you're done, okay? With Poplar Fruit's new teaching method, an hour actually passed quite quickly. It was strange that when Poplar Fruit was in class, Fong Bei Bei would involuntarily immerse herself in it. Even Kiki would listen without blinking. She did not impatiently make a fuss. Okay, let's go shopping. Poplar Fruit did what he said. After an hour of learning, he began to pack his things. Oh yeah, I'm free. Fong Bei Bei raised Kiki and jumped up happily. Kiki felt that she was standing very high and could not stop giggling. Where are we going shopping? Up and down 9? Poplar Fruit asked. I'll go get the car. You have a car? But there's no need. Fong Bei Bei said, there's a big supermarket less than a kilometer north of here. Let's go shopping. Shopping? Poplar Fruit did not understand and followed Fong Bei Bei downstairs. We're going to buy pots and pans for cooking. Fong Bei Bei hugged Kiki and said, don't drag it. Kiki struggled to get down and walk by herself. Fong Bei Bei also heard from Poplar Fruit that Kiki was learning how to walk recently. She learned quite quickly, but if there was no one to help her walk, she still needed some time to practice. She pressed Chi-Chi down and said with a smile, not yet. Kiki still doesn't know how to walk down the stairs now. I'll let you walk when we get to the supermarket, okay? Kiki blinked her big eyes and obediently hugged Fong Bei Bei's neck. She could not help but kiss Fong Bei Bei's smooth face. Poplar Fruit walked behind them and smiled as he pinched Kiki's little face with his fingers. There's a supermarket here. Poplar Fruit exclaimed, I've never been here before. Fong Bei Bei said proudly, you boys don't like shopping as much as girls. Usually, when you buy things, do you buy them in the school's small supermarket? Poplar Fruit nodded in shame. When they arrived at the supermarket, Kiki was like a runaway wild horse. At first, Fong Bei Bei held her little hand and taught her how to walk. Later, Kiki trotted as if she was holding Fong Bei Bei's hand. Her cheerful laughter even covered the sound of the supermarket music. Be careful. Walk slowly. Poplar Fruit pushed the shopping cart and helplessly followed behind. After a round, the shopping cart was still empty. I'm not running anymore, I'm not running anymore. Fong Bei Bei was a little out of breath because of Kiki. On the other hand, Kiki was still energetic. She was pulled by Fong Bei Bei and turned to look at Fong Bei Bei with a grin. Then, she pounced back and hugged Fong Bei Bei's thigh. Fong Bei Bei carried Kiki into the shopping cart. She walked in front and held the front of the cart with one hand and picked up a sauce with the other. Kiki looked at her father who was focused on Fong Bei Bei and then looked at Fong Bei Bei. She pulled the edge of the shopping cart and leaned over to look at Fong Bei Bei's fingers. Poplar Fruit felt that Fong Bei Bei looked especially beautiful when she was sweating a little. Her hair was a little messy, her face was a little red, her nose was fluttering, and her cherry lips were slightly parted. The more he looked at her, the more charming he found her. Buy this brand of soy sauce. It's fresher. Fong Bei Bei gestured to Poplar Fruit. Seeing that Poplar Fruit had no intention of objecting, she took a bottle and put it in the shopping cart. Poplar Fruit quickly moved a little further away, afraid that it would hit Kiki's little foot. As they walked down, there were more and more things in the shopping cart. Kiki looked at this and then that and found that her eyes were a little overwhelmed. In the end, there was no place for Kiki to stand. Poplar Fruit had to carry Kiki with one hand and push the cart with the other. They carried the big and small shopping bags back to their place. Poplar Fruit cooked while Fong Bei Bei washed the rice and vegetables. The kitchen was a little crowded, but it felt cozy. After dinner, Poplar Fruit's phone rang. He ran outside to answer it. When he came back, Fong Bei Bei rested her chin on her hand and looked up at Poplar Fruit. She said, Uncle, are you coming back tomorrow? Poplar Fruit asked curiously, don't you have classes tomorrow? I don't have to go to general studies classes. Fong Bei Bei said. We haven't finished the game yet. Poplar Fruit laughed. You should go to class. The game isn't in a hurry. Also, I'm going to meet a friend tomorrow. We just talked about it on the phone. I see. Fong Bei Bei said with some disappointment. Poplar Fruit looked at her and asked softly, "How about the day after tomorrow? It's Saturday. You don't have anything to do, right?" "Okay. I don't have anything to do." Fong Bei Bei was happy. Begging for monthly votes. Begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to, asterisk. Chapter 197. Early the next morning, when the sun had just risen and there was still a slight chill from the spring morning, Yanghua drove to her brother He Wanjua's residence. The call he received yesterday was from He Wanjua. Finally, it was the day for family and friends to visit the military camp. He Wanjua promised to take Poplar Fruit to the military camp to play. Today, it was finally going to happen. Poplar Fruit didn't know that there was a small disturbance outside He Wanjua's neighborhood. The strange man rented an old car today. It looked like a taxi, but it was already obsolete. When Poplar Fruit drove out, he followed Poplar Fruit's car from afar. Of course, the rented car couldn't compare to Poplar Fruit's Land Rover. However, because of the city's speed limit, he wouldn't be left behind by Poplar Fruit. After much difficulty, he finally arrived at the Eastern Mountain Villa district. The strange man's car was stopped by the guard, who wouldn't let him in no matter what. "If you don't let me in, do you think I can't do anything?" The strange man found a place to park and got out with a cigarette in his mouth. Just like last time, he walked for a while and found what seemed to be a flaw in the wall. "Bah!" The strange man spat out the cigarette butt, twisted it with his feet, and twisted his fists as if he was preparing for a workout. "Luckily, my kung fu isn't bad, hee. He tightened his backpack and jumped. This time, he didn't have the support of a tree. He used his hand to grab onto a crack in the wall. Before he completely stopped, he pushed himself up and flipped his lower body high into the air. He magically completed a somersault in the air and landed steadily on the top of the wall. He even stepped on a place where there was no barbed wire. Piece of cake. The strange man clapped his hands proudly and jumped lightly. His whole body was like a goose spreading its wings. He landed lightly on the ground without making a sound. However, the Eastern Mountain Villa district was a place where the rich and powerful lived. How could ordinary property compare to the security? The strange man thought that he was good at fighting and came in without making a sound. However, he did not know that there was a hidden surveillance camera on a nearby tree that caught him. Although they didn't see him climb over the wall, the security guards in the monitoring room saw his every move when he jumped down the wall. With just one order, several security guards rushed to that area. The security guards of the East Mountain Villa district were all retired soldiers. They had some combat experience and even formed an encirclement. Unfortunately, the strange man's kung fu was really good. His ears twitched and he heard the security guard's footsteps. There were too many footsteps. The strange man immediately realized that he had been exposed and reacted immediately. He was, after all, a professional private detective. He had a lot of small objects in his hands. He threw some small balls that he had pinched in all directions. Smoke spread out, and soon, the area was shrouded in smoke. Visibility was very low. With the help of the smoke, the strange man successfully escaped to the wall and leaped out. F***ck. The frightened strange man drove away. Good thing I ran fast. Good thing I wore a hat and put on makeup. Otherwise, my reputation would be ruined here. Poplar Fruit, this kid, has such a strong background? The strange man was a little hesitant about the order. However, when he thought of the box of bright red cash, the strange man gritted his teeth and thought to himself, who cares if he has a strong background or not? I took his money and I had to help him. Next time, I have to be careful. Take his picture, take the money, and run. Of course, Poplar Fruit didn't know about this. They didn't catch anyone, but they didn't lose anything. For their own reputation, the security guards didn't spread the news. When Poplar Fruit saw He Wanjua, he had been waiting for Poplar Fruit in the yard for a long time. Park your car here. Today, take my car. He Wanjua's voice was like a large bell. Poplar Fruit saw Ji Xiaoyan come out in sportswear. He asked curiously, "Is sister-in-law coming too?" "It's family visit day." "Of course, family members have to go." "Haha, besides, if she doesn't go, who will take care of your child?" He Wanjua laughed. "What about Xiao Chen?" Poplar Fruit asked He Wanjua's son, He Yuchen. "He has to go to class today," Ji Xiaoyan said. "He always plays with knives and guns in the military camp. I don't want him to go." "It's because she won't give it to me," He Wanjua said with some dissatisfaction. "I originally wanted to skip class and take my son with me. A soldier's child needs to see the world. When I was 5 years old, I already shot a gun. I don't want my son to go through fire and water with you," Ji Xiaoyan said with even more dissatisfaction. "Otherwise, I'll have to worry about my son after worrying about the old one." He Wanjua couldn't win against his wife. He waved at Poplar Fruit and said, "Let's not talk about it anymore. Come over quickly and set off early." Poplar Fruit shrugged. He moved Kiki and the child's safety seat from his Land Rover and put them in He Wanjua's car. Ji Xiaoyan enthusiastically helped Kiki fasten the seat belt. She smiled and said, "You and your brother bought the same car. Why do you both like this kind of car? Can't you buy a nicer one?" He Wanjua protested. Hey, what do you mean by nicer? Is my car not nicer? "Anyway, I don't want to drive it out even if you give it to me," Ji Xiaoyan said, giving He Wanjua a dirty look. After getting in the car, Ji Xiaoyan nagged He Wanjua, "Don't take Poplar Fruit to fight. Poplar Fruit looks gentle and gentle. He can't take a few blows from you guys." Poplar Fruit smiled and comforted, "Sister-in-law, it's okay." "Hey, why are you worried about Poplar Fruit?" He Wanjua waved and said, "With Poplar Fruit's skills, he can beat as many as he wants. I still want him to help me teach those guys who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth a lesson. It's not good to fight." As a glorious teacher of the people, Ji Xiaoyan wasn't used to fighting. Seeing that she couldn't win against He Wanjua and the others, she bitterly said, "You should sit down and have a meal to communicate with your family." Some military camps were located in the city, but some military camps were hidden deep in the mountains and forests. The military camp He Wanjua was taking them to today belonged to the latter. Poplar Fruit was chatting with He Wanjua and the rest when they inadvertently looked out of the car window. They were already out of the city. There were mountains and bushes outside, and they didn't know where they were. He Wanjua looked at the rearview mirror and smiled. "Don't guess. You definitely haven't been here before. The military camp here belongs to the field division. We sometimes train here too. Today's family visit is arranged here." He Wanjua and the rest of the Special Forces camp was not fixed. Poplar Fruit felt that it was so mysterious. After getting off the national highway, there was a bumpy mountain road. At this time, the Land Rover's off-road performance showed. It could travel on such a bumpy road steadily. He Wanjua said proudly, "Poplar Fruit, how is it? Brother's car is good, right? Brother's car is not as good as yours. Your sports car is good on the road, but it's not so good on the mountain road." Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to buy tickets for the poor. Greater than over equal to, asterisk. Chapter 198. After driving into the military camp, Yanghua didn't feel that this military camp was any different from the military camps she went to during her high school military training. There were dormitories, office buildings, sports fields, etc. Everything was there. After getting out of the car, Poplar Fruit noticed the difference. This military camp was as big as a high school, but there were less than 100 people wearing military uniforms. Including the military wives and family members who were walking around happily, there were no more than 300 people. The whole place looked too spacious and empty, and it was a little quiet. Poplar Fruit asked He Wanjua in a low voice, "Brother, did some of them go home for the holidays?" He Wanjua laughed. "No, everyone is here today. Do you feel that there are too few people?" Poplar Fruit nodded seriously. "The Special Forces is the elite force of our army. Every soldier is 1 in 100, or even 1 in 1,000, soldier kings. It's already good that there are so many of them. He Wanjua laughed. Also, this place is only a training ground. We are not stationed here usually. Sometimes, we will come here for training. Other times, the brothers from other units will come here too. He Wanjua explained patiently. Ji Xiaoyan sneered. Stationed here? You all only stay there for a few days a year. Other soldiers stay in the barracks for a few years, but when they become soldiers, they have to go out every 2 to 3 days. I don't even know where they are going on missions. Leaving your wife and children to worry at home. Ji Xiaoyan said gloomily. We are also protecting our country. If we are needed, we will go. He Wanjua said seriously. But looking at Ji Xiaoyan's expression, He Wanjua's heart softened. He stretched out his bare arms and hugged his wife, comforting her with kind words. All right, I know. I promise, I will definitely come back safe and sound. Captain, are you two being intimate? A few burly Special Forces soldiers walked over and greeted them with a smile. De Xiong Air, Xiong San. He Wanjua's expression immediately changed. He scolded, Are the three of you itching again? Is the punishment from the day before not enough? This nickname was really vivid. The three of them were all burly. They looked like 3 human-shaped bears. Poplar Fruit compared them with his eyes. The strongest one's arms were as thick as his thighs. What did they eat to grow so big? From their accent, they should be from the north. How many people in the south can be so strong? Xiong San scratched his head and said, Captain, don't be angry. Boss Han asked me to come over with you and sister-in-law. Bullshit. You all are the ones who want to eat, right? You're pushing the excuse to Captain Han again. He Wanjua jokingly scolded. He turned around and smiled at Poplar Fruit. Don't be fooled by these 3 guys. Especially this Xiong San. He looks like an honest person, but he is the most cunning. Hee. Even though he was exposed, Xiong San didn't feel embarrassed. He just scratched his head and smiled foolishly. This is... Big Xiong looked at Poplar Fruit and Kiki, who was in his arms. Kiki was a little scared by these 3 giants. She hugged her father's neck tightly and didn't dare to make a sound. Seeing that Big Bear was looking at her with his big, bronze bell-like eyes, Chi-Chi let out an MMM and hid her head in her father's embrace. It was as if that was the safest harbor, and no matter how terrifying the storm was, it would not be able to invade. This is my brother, Poplar Fruit. He Wanjua introduced. Don't look around. Don't scare the child. Big Xiong, Xiong Air, and Xiong San all looked at He Wanjua. There was some doubt in their eyes. He Wanjua knew that these 3 misunderstood. He smiled and said, Don't look at me. This child is my brother's. I didn't secretly give birth to one. After that, He Wanjua took the lead and walked towards the crowd. Captain is here. It was unknown which kid shouted. For a moment, all the Special Forces soldiers who were chatting with their heads down raised their heads and looked at He Wanjua. A soldier who looked very mature and steady walked out and said with a smile, Captain, you brought sister-in-law here? Hey, where is Xiao Chen? He Wanjua smiled and said, He has class today, so he won't be coming. Captain Han, long time no see. Ji Xiaoyan was no longer sad. She smiled and greeted him. Hello, sister-in-law. Captain Han didn't answer. A group of young men behind him shouted. Hello, all of you. Ji Xiaoyan also responded generously. Captain, this is... Captain Han looked at Poplar Fruit and asked He Wanjua. He Wanjua smiled and said, This is the brother I told you about, Poplar Fruit. Captain Han reached out his hand and smiled at Poplar Fruit. Brother Poplar Fruit, I've heard a lot about you. Poplar Fruit quickly pulled out his right hand and shook hands with Captain Han. He said, Captain Han, you flatter me. Don't call me Captain Han. That's your big brother, the captain. You can call me Han Feng. Han Feng smiled and said. After the greetings, He Wonjua stood in the middle of the open space and shouted, "Boys, it's not 10 o'clock yet. There's still a long time before lunch. Let's take advantage of this time and show our usual training to our father, mother, brother, sister, wife, and children, okay?" "Okay." Everyone also shouted in unison. Some of the family members were so happy that they even clapped their hands. Then, Special Forces, listen to my command, assemble. He Wonjua raised his right hand and shouted. All the soldiers immediately ran out from the crowd. They were like many green streams that gradually merged into a big river. When Xiongde and the others ran past Poplar Fruit, they still whispered sadly, "Sigh, I'm going to be hungry again. This morning, I only ate 12 buns. Luckily, I had foresight. I ate 15 buns. Haha. Line up to the right, line up to the front, count off." He Wonjua quickly arranged the formation of nearly 100 people. As expected of a Special Forces unit, their movements were clean and efficient, without the slightest sloppiness. 1, 2, 3. Everyone in each row took turns to shout. Their heads swayed as if they were cheering at the World Cup. "Okay. Turn to the right." He Wonjua shouted, "Let's go to the field now. Family members, please follow us to the field. Let's walk in unison." Poplar Fruit carried Kiki and walked over with Ji Xiaoyan and the family members. To be honest, the soldiers of the Special Forces did not walk in unison like they did during a military parade. For these soldiers who were very strong, their overall movement was definitely not as good as a normal troop. However, in order to show off in front of their family members, they walked very energetically. Every time they took a step, there would be a loud clattering sound. Their aura was like an unsheathed sword that was going to pierce through the air in front of them. It was very spectacular. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, please use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 199. At first, Poplar Fruit thought that the drill he Wonjua was talking about would be the traditional exercises such as proper marching, running, and so on. He didn't expect them to be playing special warfare drills. Climbing trees, climbing walls, building human walls, mixed martial arts, armed melee, military boxing, and all kinds of hard qigong demonstrations that were similar to a performance. One of the soldiers, after standing firm, jumped back high and slammed his back heavily on the concrete floor. This performance, which caused the family members to exclaim, was actually just one of their daily training. Poplar Fruit had morning exercises every morning, but when he saw them doing such exercises, he was also stunned. His forehead was covered in cold sweat. Were they still human? Could they bear to risk their lives like this every day? Kiki, on the other hand, couldn't take her eyes off them. She was fascinated. In fact, there were still many performances that hadn't been performed yet. After all, the family members were here today. He Wonjua was very tolerant and didn't let them drill through the mud or climb the barbed wire fence. He just performed like a sideshow and let them go. However, looking at how they weren't even out of breath, it was clear that this amount of exercise wasn't even considered a warm-up. Even so, the family members still applauded and cheered. He Wonjua gathered them to line up again and walked one round. He helped a warrior who looked young get rid of the grass stick stuck to his clothes and laughed. "You've only walked one round and your head and face are already covered in dust? I'll give you half a minute to tidy up." He also saw the worried gazes of some of the female family members. In order not to make the family members feel distressed, he simply let them tidy up themselves. If it was during normal times, if it wasn't dirty and messy, how could it be called training? After tidying up, the Special Forces soldiers thought that they could disperse. They began to whisper to each other in a scattered manner. "Attention!" He Wonjua shouted suddenly. The whole team instantly quieted down. He smiled strangely and said, "Next, it's the actual combat performance." Everyone turned to look at each other. They were a little confused. They thought to themselves, wasn't that an actual combat just now? What was going on now? He Wonjua didn't wait for them to ask questions. He said loudly, Fighting with our own people doesn't count as actual combat. Next, I invite my brother to come up and exchange real kung fu with everyone. Everyone watched as Wanjua turned around and ran to the family area to pull out poplar fruit. Give the child to your sister-in-law, Wanjua said firmly. Come with me. Poplar Fruit could only hurriedly ask his sister-in-law to help carry Kiki. He also passed the small bag on his back to his sister-in-law. Then, he followed Wanjua down with some apprehension. Wanjua had already told Poplar Fruit that he wanted to fight with his soldiers, but he didn't expect it to happen so soon. Nearly 100 energetic and strong men stood with their hands behind their back. They stared at Poplar Fruit walking in front of them. Poplar Fruit was very tall. That was true, but his body was really not convincing. Although he couldn't be said to be skinny, he was still a far cry from being sturdy. Coupled with basketball shoes, loose casual pants, and a white long-sleeved shirt, he was simply an ordinary boy next door. There was no sense of threat at all. Are you kidding me? A guy couldn't help but shout. He wants to exchange real kung fu with us? With his small arms. Yes, this is my brother, Poplar Fruit. Wanjua said seriously, who wants to come out and exchange some pointers with him? Poplar Fruit clasped his fist and smiled at the group of special forces in front of him. He said, "Hello, everyone." There was complete silence. No one responded. Fighting with a scholar, they were afraid of hurting him, so they had to be cautious. Even if they won, it wouldn't be honorable, so no one was willing to fight. Wanjua smiled and thought, looking down on Poplar Fruit, let's see who will fall later. He pointed at the guy who had just shouted and said, Yang Zhengdong, Poplar Fruit is your brother. You go first. Everyone muttered in their hearts, go first? Yang Zhengdong can push him with one finger. The two people standing in front held back their laughter and quickly moved aside to make way for Yang Zhengdong. Captain, don't. Yang Zhengdong shouted reluctantly. You don't even listen to me? Wanjua stared and threatened. You don't have to fight. Later we will eat, and you will run 20 laps on the field by yourself. Yang Zhengdong could only obediently walk forward. He was also a burly man. Although he was not very tall, about 1.75 meters, his horizontal body made him look as burly as Xiong De and the others. Wanjua patted Yanggua's shoulder and said in a low voice, Go, help me teach this group of brats who don't know that there are mountains beyond mountains. Poplar Fruit rolled up the sleeves of his shirt, stretched out his right hand to Yang Zhengdong, and said with a smile, Brother Yang, please advise me. Yang Zhengdong reluctantly shook Poplar Fruit's hand and said, Don't worry, we are both surnamed Yang. I will take it easy. How about this, I won't bully you. You go first, and I will give you 3 moves. Poplar Fruit stood firmly in the ring that Wanjua drew with his feet. He slowly made a starting gesture and said with a smile, No need, we will fight fairly. You don't need to give me a chance. Come on. Yang Zhengdong was provoked by Poplar Fruit's words. He had never seen such an ignorant scholar before. He took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Then, he also walked onto the ring. But out of pride, after he stood up, he didn't make any moves. He just looked at Poplar Fruit indifferently. Although he was the same as Wanjua, he was not good at martial arts. But he was still trained in martial arts. It was not difficult for him to fight against a few adults. He didn't need to make the first move when he was fighting against Poplar Fruit. He was really looking down on him. Poplar Fruit found it funny. After going through a few real battles, he knew his own kung fu. He was able to defeat the captain of the special forces. How could he be weaker than other people? Even if it was a competition of strength, Poplar Fruit was not afraid. His monstrous strength was not proportional to his muscles. Thinking back to when he smashed the tile floor of the bank, it showed how strong Poplar Fruit was. Judging a book by its cover and looking down on Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit was going to make them look at him in a different light today. Yang Zhengdong didn't make a move, but Poplar Fruit suddenly made a move. He stretched out his right hand and patted Yang Zhengdong's shoulder. Yang Zhengdong had a disdainful smile on his face. You want to fight with me with such little kung fu? He suddenly moved his body to the side and stretched out his arm to grab Poplar Fruit's right hand. Poplar Fruit's move was just a bait. His right hand moved at lightning speed, and his left hand grabbed Yang Zhengdong's arm. He pulled and pushed Yang Zhengdong's arm away. His hands looked like they were drawing a circle in the air. Yang Zhengdong didn't know what had happened. His body suddenly flew up uncontrollably and landed heavily on the ground. Poplar Fruit's movements were too fast, and Yang Zhengdong didn't react in time. Only a few people in the audience saw what had happened. Their eyes lit up, and they stood up. Author's note: my subscriptions are dropping rapidly recently, and I don't have any recommendation spots. I can only ask my readers to vote for me. Xiao Han has been working hard. Can you see that? Chapter 200. The audience was silent. The family members who had been chatting were also silent. They looked at Yang Zhengdong, who had fallen to the ground, in shock. This scene was very familiar. Wasn't it the same as when Poplar Fruit came down and no one wanted to play with him? If Yang Zhengdong had been thrown by Poplar Fruit like that, an ordinary person, like Tao Han from a foreign trade company, would probably have had a hard time. However, Yang Zhengdong had been practicing every day. He did not feel anything when he was thrown by Poplar Fruit. It was just that the fall was a little too embarrassing. He roared and jumped up from the ground like a carp. Before he left the ring line, he shouted, "Again!" At this moment, Yang Zhengdong's eyes changed. He was no longer as indifferent as he was at the beginning. He began to be cautious. Although he did not know how he lost, it was best to stabilize his stance first. This time he made the first move. He waved his left hand and swept Poplar Fruit away. However, Yang Zhengdong's move was the same as Poplar Fruit's. It was just a feint. The real killer move was in his right hand. He clenched his right hand into a fist and smashed Poplar Fruit's head. Although the speed was not fast, the force was great and the wind from the fist was fierce. It felt like it could split mountains and split rocks. Of course, when Yang Zhengdong's fist fell, he still held back a little. It was just a friendly match. It would be too much to injure or cripple the opponent. Poplar Fruit was not experienced in fighting and was tricked by Yang Zhengdong's feint. However, Poplar Fruit's reaction was too fast. The moment Yang Zhengdong's fist was about to hit, Poplar Fruit tilted his head and leaned back. He rotated his back foot to his front foot and his body miraculously circled to Yang Zhengdong's side. Not only that, when Yang Zhengdong's fist missed and his body staggered, Poplar Fruit's body, which was almost lying down and spinning, hooked onto one of Yang Zhengdong's supporting legs. With a tug of his toes, Yang Zhengdong lost his balance. This time, Poplar Fruit didn't just let him fall. Poplar Fruit grabbed Yang Zhengdong's off-balance shoulder with his right hand and pulled him over. Yang Zhengdong's belly was facing him. Poplar Fruit then jumped on top of Yang Zhengdong. Yang Zhengdong was pushed out of the sidelines and fell to the ground. Tai Chi. All the Special Forces soldiers present clearly saw Poplar Fruit's movements, and these two words flashed through their minds. After all, they were all elite soldiers, elites among the hundreds of thousands of soldiers in the Yongcheng military region. They still had a good eye. Such smooth movements, such a way of borrowing force to attack force. If it wasn't Taiji, what else could it be? However, their gazes were very strange. Yang Zhengdong's skills were considered to be in the middle among them. The second time he fought so seriously, he quickly lost again. It could be said that he was no match for him. Was the Poplar Fruit really that strong? For a moment, the field fell into silence again. It was so quiet that even the wind rustling the treetops and blowing the gravel could be heard. Earlier, Yang Zhengdong could still use the excuse of being careless, but this time, he was truly convinced of his loss. He wasn't injured, so he didn't need to rest. He directly got up from the ground and saluted Poplar Fruit respectfully. "I lost. I'm an expert, and I admit defeat." Poplar Fruit instantly had a good impression of this forthright man. He also saluted generously and said, Thank you for letting me win. Dad. In the family area, Chi-Chi also opened her eyes wide as she watched her father compete with the uncles. When she saw that her father had won, she cried out happily. Her clear and melodious voice could be heard more than 10 meters away. Poplar Fruit turned around and waved happily at his daughter. He won 1-1, but he wasn't going to let him go so easily. He laughed and said loudly, "See? My brother's arms and legs are small, but he's still very powerful, right?" He suddenly shouted, "Who else wants to come up and fight with Poplar Fruit?" Seeing Poplar Fruit's strength, some of the people in the special forces who were not as good as Yang Zhengdong began to shrink their heads. But there were a few people who were very good at martial arts, and they were itching to fight. They rubbed their hands and were ready to fight. "I'll do it!" A loud shout interrupted their thoughts. A tall man jumped out from the crowd and landed heavily on the arena. The tip of his foot poked a hole in the ground. This person wasn't as strong as Xiong Di and the others, but his muscles were bulging. It seemed that he had a very powerful explosive force. Poplar Fruit had seen this kind of muscles before. It was the group of Muay Thai robbers in the bank. Their muscles were just like this. And this person in front of him was even stronger than the strongest boss at that time. Martial arts addict? Seeing this fellow jump out, Wanjua was also stunned. He never thought that the person who jumped out would actually be martial addict Meng. Martial arts addict's real name was Meng Sonhua. Some people in the special forces called him Brother Sonhua. In terms of cold weapons and firearms, Meng Sonhua was definitely the strongest in the special forces. Meng Sonhua had learned Tan Tue, which was passed down in his family. He was already very good at it before he joined the military. In traditional martial arts, other than some that were passed down by word of mouth, most of the martial arts were just for strengthening the body. Some of them were just for show, but they weren't useful in a fight. Those martial arts were very different from real martial arts that could be used to deal with enemies. Tan Tue was the same. Some places taught Tan Tue, which was just for show. However, Meng Sonhua's family's Tan Tue did have some real skills. It was said that he learned it from Shaolin Temple. The 12 Tan Tue were very powerful. Meng Sonhua was very talented in martial arts. He might have been a martial arts scholar in ancient times, where bravery was valued. Not only had he thoroughly learned his family's Tan Tue, but after entering the army, he had also learned military boxing, which was mainly for killing enemies. The special forces style was more special. He had even started to try to integrate the force exertion method of Tan Tue with military boxing. After going through real life and death battles with enemies, Meng Sonhua actually created his own fighting style. The moves were the same as before, but the way they were used was different. Meng Sonhua wasn't satisfied. Every time he interacted with other military units, he would run to the other side's experts to spar with. Later on, he earned himself the nickname Martial Arts Addict. However, everyone still respected Meng Sonhua for his deep study of martial arts. Wanjua's plan was that Poplar Fruit would spar with 3 to 5 special forces soldiers. Only at the end would Meng Sonhua show up and let the two experts fight. However, changes came quickly. Poplar Fruit had just defeated Yang Zhengdong when Meng Sonhua couldn't help but show up. Once he showed up, no one else would join in the fun. This was also Yang's fault. Who told him to be so eye-catching when he fought Yang Zhengdong? The martial arts fanatic was too excited to care about anything else. I've lost a lot of subscriptions recently, and I don't have any recommendation spots. I can only ask for more votes. Xiaohan has been working hard. 1 update became 2, 2 updates became 3, do you see? Chapter 201. Meng Sonhua jumped into the ring and raised his head. He stood up straight and cupped his fist. Southwest Tan Tue Meng Sonhua. He was introducing himself. Poplar Fruit had never experienced it before, but he had seen it on TV and in novels. He cupped his fist respectfully and said, "Nanue Tai Chi Poplar Fruit." Some of the Special Forces soldiers who were familiar with martial arts looked at each other. They had never heard of any Tai Chi family in Nanue Tai Chi, let alone one with the surname Yang. It's Meng Wazi. A white-bearded old man in the family area nodded. Grandpa, do you know him? The young man who came with him asked. I heard about him from your brother. The old man stroked his beard and sighed. Meng Wazi is the best, but Yang Wazi won't be easy. I think so too. A fat auntie interrupted. Look at his size, he's much stronger than Poplar Fruit. I'm afraid that Poplar Fruit is going to lose. Although she used the word afraid, her tone was confident. Kiki, who was staring at Poplar Fruit, suddenly turned her head and pouted. In Chi-Chi's heart, her father was the most powerful person in the world. She couldn't tolerate others speaking ill of her father. She didn't know what words to use to refute them, so after holding it in for a long time, she angrily called out, Father, Yonghua, you're awesome. Kiki even gave a thumbs up. Her childish voice attracted everyone's attention. Oh, Captain He's wife. She's Poplar Fruit's daughter, right? The auntie's eyes lit up when she saw Kiki's cute appearance. Yes, I saw Poplar Fruit hugging her. A military wife smiled. Ji Xiaoyan nodded and smiled. Yes, she's Poplar Fruit's daughter. She's so pretty. The auntie smiled. She looks like she's 2 years old, right? Ji Xiaoyan shook her head and smiled. No, I'm not even a year old yet. Wow. The family members cried out in surprise. The middle-aged woman shook her head and said, It can't be. Not even 1 year old. My child wasn't even this big when he was 2 years old. Daddy, you're awesome. Despite being praised by the auntie, Kiki did not relent at all. She persisted in counting her thumbs and repeated it again. Good, good, your father is the best. Your father is the best. When she saw Kiki smiling happily, she said with a smile, This girl is so smart and cute. I really don't know how Poplar Fruit taught her. Most of the family members in the family area had their attention on Kiki. At this moment, the atmosphere in the ring was already tense. Meng Sanhua tapped the ground with one foot and assumed a starting stance. However, his stance was imposing. The soldiers in the special forces had all experienced real battles, and Meng Sanhua was no exception. The number of enemies who had died in his hands was uncountable. An expert who had killed before could emit a chilling murderous aura from his eyes. Normal people would probably run away when they saw it. When he went down to the company to select elites, some of the new recruits were so scared that they collapsed on the ground. It was clear that his murderous aura was powerful. However, this did not scare Poplar Fruit. Perhaps it was because he had faced a life-and-death situation in the bank and killed an enemy, but Poplar Fruit was not affected much by Meng Sanhua's aura. Meng Sanhua's left foot drew on the sand and his right leg bowed. His hands formed a yin and yang symbol, and he assumed the starting stance of Tai Chi. This stance was different from Fu Lei's from Gua family's Xingyi boxing dojo. Meng Sanhua did give him pressure. He did not dare to use Xingyi boxing, which he had practiced for countless times, nor did he dare to use his own random starting stance. Meng Sanhua tapped the ground with one foot, but his lower body was very stable. Poplar Fruit could feel it with just one look. It was true. The foundation of Tontue lay in the legs. Meng Sanhua had been practicing the stance since he was young. His legs were rooted to the ground. Even 2 strong men could not move them. I'm coming. Watch out. Meng Sanhua shouted and took the initiative. He did not use his legs directly. Instead, he swung his fists and punched like a boxer. Left hook, right hook, straight punch. Every punch was aimed at Meng Sanhua's face. Poplar Fruit was never afraid of such big punches. However, Meng Sanhua's status as the top fighter in the special forces was not for nothing. His reflexes were also faster than ordinary people. His fists rained down like a storm. Poplar Fruit could only spread his arms to parry the punches. He did not have time to fight back. Not bad. Meng Sanhua laughed. His punches suddenly changed. Instead of straight up and down, he used military boxing with uppercuts and elbows. His fists and palms changed, and his target area expanded from the head to the rest of the body. Poplar Fruit could not just sit there and wait. He sped up. Push, push, squeeze, and press. He used one hand to deflect his opponent's punches, and the other hand to squeeze his opponent's joints so that his opponent could not use his strength. Their fists, palms, and arms collided with each other, making muffled sounds as if their fists were hitting sandbags. Meng Sanhua and Poplar Fruit's exchange of fists and palms seemed to take a long time, but in reality, it only took a few breaths. Their punches were moving at a speed that was twice as fast as a movie. Even the soldiers in the special forces could not keep up with it, let alone see their moves clearly. However, Meng Sanhua knew that his punch did not hit the target at all. Poplar Fruit's hands were like the proverb, "Hands are two doors." Poplar Fruit's hands had sealed the door. Tai Chi is indeed slippery. Meng Sanhua took 3 steps back and laughed. However, you are the first one I have seen who can play Tai Chi at this level. Have a taste of my Tan Tue. Meng Sanhua raised his whip-like right leg and smashed it at Yi Shiwen. This kick was faster than the Muay Thai moves Poplar Fruit had seen before. It swept up a cloud of dust in the air, leaving only a shadow under the sun. Meng Sanhua did not expect this sudden kick. It was too late to dodge. He could only take it head-on. Poplar Fruit hurriedly raised his hands to block. His muscles tensed up and his shirt was almost stretched out. Bam! The muffled sound was loud enough that the entire field could hear it clearly. Ah! Ji Xiaoyan hugged Chi-Chi with one hand and covered her mouth worriedly with the other. Kiki's mouth was also agape. She stared at her father who was hit by the kick. She seemed to have realized that the kick was not light. He Wanjua could no longer stay calm. He widened his eyes nervously. Meng Sanhua was a martial arts maniac. He was the one who brought Poplar Fruit here today. How could he live with himself if something happened to him? I have lost a lot of subscriptions recently. I don't have any recommendation spots. I can only ask readers to vote for me. Xiao Han has been working hard. 1 update turned into 2, 2 updates turned into 3. It is very tiring, but he is still trying. Chapter 202. Indeed, if an ordinary person was hit by Meng Sanhua's kick, they would either die or suffer a concussion. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit was not an ordinary person. His strength could not be measured by science. Even after taking the kick, Poplar Fruit was still standing. Poplar Fruit retracted his hand and stood still. There was nothing wrong with him except that his hand muscles were slightly red. After being hit by Meng Sanhua's kick, Poplar Fruit's hidden courage seemed to be aroused. He slammed his fist on his chest and grinned. Again. Meng Sanhua also grinned and licked his lips. He was happy to meet a worthy opponent today. He had used less than 70% of his strength in that kick. However, even with less than 70% of his strength, not many people in the Special Forces could withstand it. Now, it seemed that Poplar Fruit was still at ease. So, could he finally have a good fight with all his strength? Needless to say, Meng Sanhua pounced again and kicked Poplar Fruit's head with his right leg. No, it was a triple kick. His right leg was in the air and he kicked 3 times in a row. Head, neck, and waist. Each time, the target was a different place. Poplar Fruit dodged the first kick and blocked the second with his left hand. But his hand was also knocked back. When Meng Sanhua's strength was slightly reduced, Poplar Fruit reached out with his right hand to grab Meng Sanhua's ankle. Poplar Fruit's hand was as fast as lightning. He grabbed Meng Sanhua's ankle in an instant. All he needed to do was to move sideways and twist his body to disrupt Meng Sanhua's center of gravity. Meng Sanhua reacted quickly. He flipped onto the ground and used his hands as support. His left leg drew a diagonal arc in the air and swept at Poplar Fruit's chin. Poplar Fruit quickly let go of his right hand and raised his head to dodge. However, Meng Sanhua was not done with his attack. Like Thomas, he supported himself with his hand on the ground and swept his left leg in the air. Then, his right leg, which had just been freed, kicked towards Yongguo's knee. Poplar Fruit hastily retreated. Meng Sanhua flipped over and got up. He didn't stop for a moment, but continued punching and kicking. Tontue was known for its powerful, explosive, and fast movements. After Meng Sanhua integrated it into military boxing, his movements became even more unpredictable. Using his fist as a guide, he was pulled away by Poplar Fruit's upward and outward motion. He immediately followed up with his leg and kicked fiercely at Poplar Fruit's exposed abdomen. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit reacted quickly. He twisted his body like a fried dough twist and barely dodged Meng Sanhua's kick. Meng Sanhua twisted his body and turned his kick into a diagonal kick. Then, he stomped his legs and slapped his palms. His legs smashed into the ground and made a pit in the solid ground. Poplar Fruit dodged left and right, as slippery as a loach. He relied on his two hands to withstand the opponent's attacks. Meng Sanhua's explosive strength was shocking. After all, Poplar Fruit hadn't undergone any special training. His body's resistance to attacks was weak. If he didn't have time to guide the opponent, he could only slap away the opponent's iron-like thigh. This gave Meng Sanhua an opportunity. Taking advantage of Poplar Fruit's half-second delay, Meng Sanhua turned his fist into a claw and grabbed at Poplar Fruit's shoulder. If Meng Sanhua grabbed him and couldn't move, Poplar Fruit would have a hard time fighting. It was like an eagle with iron chains tied to its feet. No matter how strong its wings were, it couldn't fly. His wrist was still a little numb. He didn't have time to grab Meng Sanhua. Poplar Fruit pulled back his right leg and arched it with his left leg in front of him. His entire body fell backward, forming a 30-degree angle with the ground. He was almost touching his hind leg. That claw had the power to split a mountain. If he was fighting against Poplar Fruit, Meng Sanhua would have clawed at his opponent's face. Disfigurement would be the least of his injuries. In a more serious situation, both of his eyeballs would be gouged out. However, Poplar Fruit's sudden move made Meng Sanhua's claw miss. He only managed to grab onto Poplar Fruit's shirt. It was too late to pull back. Under his strength, Poplar Fruit's white shirt was torn apart. A strip of white cloth dangled from the button. Meng Sanhua quickly turned around and pulled Poplar Fruit up. He apologized in embarrassment. "Sorry. I didn't hold back." The shirt couldn't be worn anymore. Poplar Fruit tore open the button and took off his shirt. He threw it aside and smiled. "It's okay. It's just a shirt." Hiss. Seeing Yang was almost perfect 8-pack abs under her clothes, the Special Forces soldiers present all sucked in a breath of cold air. They were not surprised by how big Poplar Fruit's muscles were, nor were they surprised by Poplar Fruit's 8-pack. Who in the Special Forces didn't have 8-pack abs? Moreover, Poplar Fruit's body was not even in the middle of the pack in terms of muscle size. However, Yang's muscles were really nice to look at. His back was covered with fine beads of sweat, and his abdominal muscles were neat and tidy. There were also those 2 V-lines. He was definitely a killer to women. The shape of Poplar Fruit's muscles was similar to Meng Sanhua's. They were not big, but they were full of strength. Most importantly, these muscles were usually hidden under his shirt. Who would have thought that such a handsome young man would have muscles all over his body? The white shirt coupled with Poplar Fruit's gentlemanly appearance was too confusing. For example, a bookworm with a watermelon head, large-framed glasses, and a high school uniform. Who would think that he had a colorful tiger tattoo under his shirt? Do you still want to fight? Meng Sanhua turned his head and asked. Although his hands were still itching, he still felt bad for tearing his guest's shirt. Poplar Fruit licked his lips and grinned. "Come on. Don't feel burdened. It's just a shirt. Use all your strength. That's the way to feel good." With that, Poplar Fruit bent his legs and sat down. His body was not tense. He floated up and down like a ship on the sea. His hands were crossed in front of his chest, one on the left and one on the right. Poplar Fruit felt more comfortable with his upper body naked. Looking at the shirt, he could still move freely. "All right. Let's fight to our heart's content." Meng Sanhua shook his legs lightly and his expression became calm again. Without any host shouting for the start, he rushed up and kicked his legs in the air one after another. Yang leaned back slightly and exerted strength on her waist. Her hands took turns to push Meng Sanhua's legs upwards. Meng Sanhua jumped over Poplar Fruit's head and landed behind Poplar Fruit. He did a backflip and crossed his legs. His left leg landed on the ground, and his right leg swung down. As the two fought, Meng Sanhua was like a storm. He was strong and fast, leaving no chance for his opponent to take a breather. Yang Guo, on the other hand, was like a blade of grass swaying in the wind and rain. He defended himself while retreating. However, there was no sign that he was going to lose. Even when he was dodging, he was moving in circles. His footsteps were very regular, and he was not forced out of the arena. I've been losing a lot of subscriptions recently. I don't have any recommendation spots. I can only ask for more votes from my readers. Xiao Han has been working hard. 1 update turned into 2. 2 updates turned into 3. It's tiring, but he's still trying. Chapter 203. This fight wasn't as exciting as the martial arts fights in the movies. The moves were simple and practical, and there were fewer fancy moves. To those who didn't know the ropes, Poplar Fruit was in danger and could be kicked to the ground in the next second. Many female spectators couldn't bear to watch and turned their heads away. Ji Xiaoyan was one of them, but she didn't turn her head away. She just wanted to cover Kiki's eyes, afraid that the scene would scare her. To be honest, it wasn't good for a child to watch a fight. Chi-Chi forcefully pulled away Ji Xiaoyan's hand that was covering her vision. She grabbed Ji Xiaoyan's thumb with one hand and placed her other hand in front of her chest. Her face was full of worry, and even her breathing appeared to be very rapid. Meng Sanhua kept attacking while Poplar Fruit kept defending. He was so close to taking down Meng Sanhua, but the straw that broke the camel's back didn't appear. Instead, Poplar Fruit gradually caught his breath after blocking for a while. He started to get used to Meng Sanhua's attacking rhythm. After getting used to Meng Sanhua's rhythm, Yang were no longer blindly dodged. Her hands and feet started moving more and more. There was a stick in Tai Chi Poplar Fruit's hand stuck to Meng Sanhua's fist like a leech. No matter how much strength Meng Sanhua exerted, Poplar Fruit followed his strength and pulled Meng Sanhua's fist away from his chest. Meng Sanhua raised his right knee and tried to hit Poplar Fruit's abdomen. Poplar Fruit pulled Meng Sanhua's arm down and blocked his right knee with his left arm. Then Poplar Fruit reached out his left hand and hit Meng Sanhua's chest with the back of his palm and wrist. Meng Sanhua, who was a little unstable, was hit and took a step back. Poplar Fruit, who was about to continue the close-range attack, saw darkness in front of his eyes. He quickly raised his head and dodged. It turned out that when Meng Sanhua retreated, he crossed his legs and jumped up, lifting Poplar Fruit's chin with the tip of his left foot. Meng Sanhua attacked again. He crossed his legs, lifted his knee, flipped his hips, and kicked again. Poplar Fruit dodged to the side, but Meng Sanhua did not swing his leg in the air. Instead, he retracted his leg and smashed the heel of his military boot at Poplar Fruit's head. If it was before, Poplar Fruit would have been exhausted from dodging. But now, he had gotten used to it and started to control the rhythm. Instead, he took a step forward and held Meng Sanhua's legs so that Meng Sanhua could not use his strength. Then, he pressed down and punched Meng Sanhua's abdomen. Before Meng Sanhua could react, he was punched by Poplar Fruit. Yang Guo's punch was the Xingyi fist. It was so vicious that even Meng Sanhua let out a muffled grunt. That was not the end. Poplar Fruit hooked Meng Sanhua's supporting leg with his foot and pushed up the thigh that was already under his control. Taking advantage of Meng Sanhua's unsteady body, Poplar Fruit moved to the back of Meng Sanhua. He slapped away Meng Sanhua's outstretched fist and clamped Meng Sanhua's neck with his right arm. Meng Sanhua wanted to grab Poplar Fruit's thigh and flip up to get out of Poplar Fruit's control. But after grabbing his neck, Poplar Fruit pulled him back 2 steps and then slammed him down. Meng Sanhua was on his back and his neck was gripped. He almost lost his breath from the fall. Poplar Fruit followed up with another attack. He clenched his left fist and wanted to punch Meng Sanhua's eyes. After all, Meng Sanhua was a special forces soldier who fought on the edge of life and death all year round. Although he fell badly, his counterattack did not stop. Before Poplar Fruit's fist reached him, his leg had already kicked. Meng Sanhua's leg was heading for his neck. It was almost in a straight line with his other leg. Poplar Fruit yelled. He let go of Meng Sanhua's leg and pressed it down on Meng Sanhua's head. Poplar Fruit's body fell to the ground. He wrapped his legs around Meng Sanhua's other leg and pressed him firmly to the ground. With his legs spread apart, Meng Sanhua could not exert any strength. One of his hands was pressed down by his butt and could not move. No matter how hard he tried, he could not reach Poplar Fruit. Meng Sanhua struggled with all his might but gave up in the end. Meng Sanhua patted the ground with his two movable hands to show that he admitted defeat. This was the gesture of admitting defeat when they sparred in the army. He seemed to have learned how to fight in professional boxing. However, Poplar Fruit obviously did not know how to fight. He was still stupidly pressing down. He Wanjua walked up and patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder. He smiled and said, "Okay, that's enough." Poplar Fruit let go and pulled Meng Sanhua up from the ground. He patted the dust off Meng Sanhua and smiled. "Brother Meng, I'm sorry." "What's there to apologize for?" Meng Sanhua breathed heavily and laughed. "You won this time. Good kung fu." In the family area, the auntie who said Poplar Fruit was going to lose held Kiki's hand with a big smile. "Kid, your dad won." Kiki raised her head happily and giggled. She cheered, "Dad." Yonghua also heard it. She turned around and waved at her with a smile. Chi-Chi, on the other hand, excitedly gave her a thumbs up. Her fingers were small, but they were raised high. "Only good." Yang Zhengdong walked over and smiled. "Poplar Fruit beat you to the ground. Martial arts maniac, you have to admit defeat." He was defeated by Poplar Fruit but became Poplar Fruit's fan. He even came up to fight for Poplar Fruit. "Damn you! Am I not going to admit defeat again?" Meng Sanhua laughed and scolded. "If I say you're not bad, you're at the same level as me." Poplar Fruit cupped his hands and smiled. "Brother Meng, you went easy on me. I won by a narrow margin. I, Yang Zhengdong, can see things clearly. Just look at Poplar Fruit. He fought with you for a long time and he didn't even pant or blush. Look at you." Yang Zhengdong patted his chest and said, "I can guarantee that even if you didn't lose just now, you would still lose." Tai Chi was famous for its long duration. Poplar Fruit didn't feel tired at all. Tan Tue, on the other hand, relied on explosive power. Meng Sanhua might not be able to hold on after a long fight. Besides, Poplar Fruit had gotten used to Meng Sanhua's rhythm. Victory was only a matter of time. What Yang Zhengdong said was correct. However, Meng Sanhua didn't want to admit defeat. He felt that there were still some areas where he didn't fight well enough. He hadn't shown his full strength. "We'll fight again next time." Meng Sanhua's eyes lit up. This was his character. If he met a worthy opponent or defeated him, he wouldn't let go until he could defeat and surpass his opponent. Why fight? He Wanjua walked up and punched Meng Sanhua. "You only know how to fight every day. You've neglected your gun. Don't say that I failed your evaluation. Hey, don't do that. Captain, I'll practice shooting tomorrow." Meng Sanhua said hurriedly. He didn't want to be kicked out of the special forces because he failed the evaluation. Not only would it be embarrassing, but he wouldn't even be able to find a worthy opponent when he returned to the ordinary company. Wouldn't his days be as lonely as snow? "I've been losing a lot of subscriptions recently. I don't have any recommendation spots. I can only ask readers to vote for me. Xiaohan has been working hard. One update turned into two updates turned into 3. It's very tiring, but he's still working hard." Chapter 204. He Wanjua ignored him. He patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder and shouted to the soldiers beside him, "Someone go and get some clothes." We can't let poplar fruit be naked all the time, right? As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Zhangdong shouted, I'll go. He ran towards the dormitory. His strong body moved like a piece of wood, but his speed was not slow at all. He ran back quickly with a clean camouflage t-shirt in his hand. He handed it to Poplar Fruit and smiled, Brother Poplar Fruit, you can wear it. I washed it and dried it yesterday. Yang Gua thanked him, took the clothes, and put them on. Sure enough, the clothes fit Yang Zhangdong's figure, on Yang Gua's body, were loose, just like the costumes in the Peking opera, making everyone burst into laughter. Yang Zhangdong rubbed his body with his hands embarrassedly and said, I didn't expect the difference between our bodies to be so big. Poplar Fruit smiled and comforted him, It's okay, it's fine. He Wanjua saw that Poplar Fruit had already fought with the best kung fu in the special forces. It was meaningless to continue the competition. Moreover, he had already achieved his goal of encouraging the soldiers in the special forces to practice their kung fu. So he clapped his hands and said with a smile, Everyone, you have fought and performed. It's almost time for lunch. Now, go and bring your families to the cafeteria. We have a big gathering at noon. Yay! The soldiers cheered. It was rare for their families to come over, so it was good to have more family reunion. Of course, not everyone was cheering because they were going to be with their families. For example, Big Bear, Bear 2, and Bear 3. These three were here for lunch. When they thought about the big chunks of meat that would be served at the gathering, they started to drool. After they separated, Poplar Fruit went to his sister-in-law and carried Kiki over. Kiki was still in a state of excitement. She hugged her father's neck and kissed him on the cheek. Poplar Fruit also kissed Kiki and said with a smile, Daddy's face is still dirty. Kiki was so happy that she didn't know how to express it. She moved closer to her father's ear and whispered, Daddy is awesome. Oh, that. She turned her little head and looked for the auntie in the crowd. She pointed and said, Auntie. Before she could finish her sentence, she pointed at the side of her face and tilted her head to the side. Kiki. Daddy this. She gave a thumbs up. Yang Gua didn't know what Chi-Chi was saying at all. She was just watching Chi-Chi's gestures. She didn't know what to say. Ji Xiaoyan, who was at the side, chuckled and said, Your precious daughter, just now someone said that you were going to lose, and she was unhappy. She insisted that you were the best. Best. Kiki gave her father a thumbs up seriously. Poplar Fruit now understood that Kiki was telling him that she had been supporting him. Kiki always thought that her father was the best in the world. He was touched and kissed Kiki's face again. He smiled and said, So, Kiki is Daddy's most loyal fan. Daddy is so happy. Hee. Kiki liked her father's affectionate gesture. She hugged her father and couldn't stop laughing. When they reached the cafeteria, most of the family members sat at the same table as them. The few lonely guys sat at their own table. He Wanjua and Captain Han sat at the same table with their family members so that they wouldn't be left out. It wasn't that these guys didn't have family members, but their families were too far away and didn't come over. At this table, Poplar Fruit was familiar with Xiong De, Xiong Er, and Xiong San, these three guys. Poplar Fruit sat next to He Wanjua and happened to sit next to Xiong Er. Although the two of them were about the same height, sitting next to Xiong Er, Poplar Fruit felt like he was leaning against a mountain. Xiong Er turned his head and smiled at Poplar Fruit. Kiki was scared and squeezed into her father's arms. Xiong Er, you scared Brother Yang's child. Xiong De laughed. Poplar Fruit waved his hand and smiled. It's okay. She'll be fine after she gets used to it. Xiong Er scratched his head and was a little embarrassed. He was quite honest. When he saw Poplar Fruit was going to make milk for Kiki, he volunteered to stand up and get hot water for Poplar Fruit. He was sitting on a bench with Xiong De. When he suddenly stood up, the chair tilted and Xiong De almost fell down. Haha. Kiki saw this funny scene and forgot her fear and laughed. Xiong De was about to scold Xiong Er when he heard Kiki's laughter. He looked at her angelic face and swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Thank you. Poplar Fruit took the hot water from Xiong Air. He took a bowl and filled half a bowl. Then he took another clean bowl and poured the hot water into each other to make the water cool down faster. "Why don't you accompany your father?" Poplar Fruit heard Captain Han's voice and looked up. It was Meng Sonhua who squeezed into the table with a bowl. "It's okay. He doesn't need me to accompany him," Meng Sonhua said with a smile. "I'm here to sit with Brother Poplar Fruit." The soldiers in the special forces rolled their eyes. Who didn't know that Meng Sonhua was a martial arts maniac? How could he leave his father behind just because he met someone who was good at martial arts? The dishes were served one after another. The food in the military camp was not as exquisite as the food in the hotel, but it was abundant. The basin-sized plates and porcelain jars were filled with meat and vegetables. It looked very sumptuous. Xiong De, Xiong Air and Xiong San were so hungry that they were dizzy. They held their chopsticks and stared at the big plate of pork belly with their mouths wide open. However, He Wanjua did not say anything. Because of military discipline, no one dared to move. He Wanjua stood up and said loudly, "Today, we thank our loved ones for coming to our side. Although it's not a special day, the most precious meaning of this day of visitation is to reunite with our family. Our special forces is a little special and we have many missions. Some of our comrades have not even returned home for a few years. I'm here on behalf of the special forces to apologize to our loved ones." After that, he finished the beer in the bowl and said, "Today, I won't make a long speech. I hope that everyone can have a good meal and have fun with their loved ones. Now let's eat." Oh. Everyone cheered. However, Xiong De, Xiong Air and Xiong San did not join in. The three of them reached out their chopsticks as fast as lightning when they heard the word eat. The three of them had the same action and purpose. When they retracted their chopsticks, they had already eaten a piece of fatty meat that they had been eyeing. They ate to their heart's content and the others followed suit. Meng Sonhua glanced at He Wanjua and started eating as well. Poplar Fruit was still feeding Kiki milk. He was not in a hurry and watched them eat like a hurricane. Kiki also opened her eyes wide and drank the milk in big gulps. It seemed that her appetite was much better after watching them eat. My subscriptions have been dropping rapidly recently and I don't have any recommendation spots. I can only ask for more votes from my readers. Xiao Han has been working hard. 1 update turned into 2, 2 updates turned into 3. It's very tiring, but he is still trying his best to persevere. Chapter 205. He Wanjua and Captain Han went out for a toast. Meng Sonhua put down his bowl and ran timidly to Poplar Fruit's seat. He smiled and said to him, "Brother Poplar Fruit, which unit are you from? Let's talk more when we're free." Poplar Fruit paused and smiled. "I'm not from the army." "Why do you think I'm from the army?" "Your kung fu is good," Meng Sonhua said stupidly, "but I've never seen it before." In my opinion, Xiong San's greasy mouth moved as he chewed the meat. Brother Poplar Fruit is still studying. "How is that possible?" Big Bear retorted. "His kid is already so big." "Can't a kid study?" Xiong San asked honestly. "That's right." Yang Gua laughed. "Can't I study if I have a child?" "You're really a student?" Meng Sonhua asked in surprise. "Not really." Poplar Fruit smiled. "I've been working for almost 2 years after graduation. I'm going to be a postgraduate student this year. I'll have to go back to school in the second half of the year." Hearing that Poplar Fruit had passed the postgraduate entrance exam, the soldiers were in awe. The soldiers who almost fainted when they saw the exam paper back in the day, let alone the postgraduate entrance exam, even the college entrance exam was an insurmountable mountain in their eyes. "So that's how it is." Meng Sonhua smiled. "I've never seen a talented student with such skills. Don't worry, come to the barracks with Captain when you're free. Let's have a good fight again." His title of Kung Fu Maniac was not for nothing. As they talked about the competition again. Poplar Fruit agreed readily. He usually practiced alone without an opponent, so he didn't know how far he could go. More actual combat would improve him. Meng Sanhua, for example, was a top-notch expert in kung fu and experience. Poplar Fruit felt that he had gained a lot from sparring with him. After feeding Kiki, Poplar Fruit began to eat with the others. Big Bear and the others wanted to drink with Poplar Fruit, but Poplar Fruit declined with a smile. He had quit drinking a long time ago, so he would avoid alcohol if possible. Their table ate very quickly. After Wanjua walked around, there were only a few dishes left. However, he was half full from drinking. Captain Han would have been knocked out if it was only him who could drink as much as he did. Wanjua fiercely dug into his rice and ate the food that Ji Xiaoyan had placed on his plate. Only then was he able to suppress his drunkenness. At noon, Wanjua's Ji went to take a nap. And took a nap. And Ji followed him. Yonghua walked around with Big Bear and the others, treating it as a stroll. It took him more than half an hour to walk around the place. Finally, they came to the gym. This so-called gym was actually a place for warriors to train their strength. Bramble happily ran over, picked up 2 tires and started to do squats. Big Bear kicked Bramble and said, "You just ate, don't exercise." Bramble could only put the tires down. He scratched his head and looked at Bramble 3. "Bramble 3, I haven't arm wrestled with you in a long time. Let's play?" He nervously said to Big Bear, "Boss, arm wrestling doesn't count as exercise, right?" After walking for half an hour, Big Bear nodded and let him do as he pleased. Bramble and Bramble 3 walked to a square table and sat down. They took off their jackets, leaving only their green singlets. Their bulging chest muscles bulged. They reached out, grabbed, and gathered strength. Big Bear shouted, "Begin!" and the 2 started to arm wrestle. These 3 brawny men were very strong. Bear 2 and Bear 3 had one hand on the table and the other hand on the opposite side of the table. The veins on their foreheads were protruding, as if there were a few worms coiling around them. The chairs were squeaking as they sat on them. Yonghua was a little worried for the chair. If it continued like this, would it be broken by the 2 of them? Looking at their posture, Poplar Fruit quickly covered Kiki's ears. He was afraid that their voices would disturb Kiki. "Huh!" Bramble 2 suddenly shouted and broke out with new strength. He suddenly pulled down Bramble 3's right hand and won the competition. "Brat, your strength increased again." Xiong-san massaged his sore arm and said with some annoyance, "We all train together. Why do you always rise?" "Haha." Bramble 2 laughed and replied, "Poplar Fruit brother, do you want to play together?" Big Bear turned to look at Poplar Fruit and asked, "Yes." "Poplar Fruit brother, you also come and play." "I only use one finger," Bramble 2 said confidently. "Me?" Poplar Fruit pointed to himself and asked. He was actually a bit tempted. He knew that he was strong, but to what extent, Poplar Fruit had not tried. "Come and try. I saw that when you were fighting with the martial arts maniac, you couldn't move him. Your strength should be not small," Bramble 3 said with a smile. "Okay." Poplar Fruit agreed. He looked around and carried Kiki to the table next to him. He asked Bramble 3 to help take care of her. "Don't worry," Bramble 3 said with a smile, although Bramble 3 doesn't know how to hold a child, but it's more than enough to make sure she doesn't fall. Sitting on Bramble 3's seat, Poplar Fruit raised his hand and put it on the table. After thinking for a moment, he took off the clothes that Yang Zhengdong borrowed. It was too loose and would get in the way. "Come on." Without changing hands, Bramble 2 stretched out his index finger and said with a smile. Poplar Fruit held Bramble 2's index finger. He felt a little awkward. He looked at Bramble 2's thick arm and then looked at his own arm. He was a little unconfident. The difference between the 2 was just like the difference between a sewer pipe and a water pipe. It was too disproportionate. "Okay, I'm ready," Bramble Big Brother kindly reminded. "Since I'm here, then let's have a serious fight. It's not shameful to lose," Poplar Fruit secretly said in his heart. He adjusted his attitude and tensed up the muscles in his hand, ready to exert force. "Listen to my command. Ready, start," Bramble Big Brother ordered. Poplar Fruit and Bramble 2 began to exert force. "Hey, hey, hey." The one who shouted was not Poplar Fruit but Bramble 2. Bramble 2's arm was slowly pulled over by Poplar Fruit. In the end, with a "pa" sound, he was pressed down on the table by Poplar Fruit. Bramble Big Brother and Bramble San looked at Poplar Fruit with their mouths agape. They never thought that this would be the result. Bramble 2's strength was the strongest in the team. He once pulled a liberation truck with his bare hands. Bramble Big Brother and Bramble San were slightly inferior. Looking at Poplar Fruit's thin arms, how could he win against Bramble 2 in terms of strength? Poplar Fruit did not think so much. He began to feel that the gap between him and Bramble 2 was not that big. "So," he said, "how about we have a fair fight? You don't have to go easy on me." One hand against one finger, it felt a little unfair. Bramble 2 was knocked down by Poplar Fruit, but he did not feel embarrassed. Instead, he was a little like a martial arts fanatic. He was excited to see the hunt. He happily said, "Okay, then let's have another fight." Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to buy tickets for the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 206. What's wrong with you guys? Yang Zhangdong, who was sitting in the lobby below the dormitory, looked up and saw Xiong De, Xiong Air, Xiong San, and Poplar Fruit coming over. Xiong Air's face was always simple and honest, but Xiong San no longer pretended to be like Xiong Air. He and Xiong De looked sluggish as if they had seen a ghost. If I tell you that Poplar Fruit's brother won against Xiong Air in arm wrestling, would you believe it? Xiong San asked. "I believe it." Yang Zhangdong laughed. "My brother will definitely kill God if he meets God, kill Buddha if he meets Buddha." He looked at Xiong San's expression and began to say with some uncertainty, "You guys are not joking?" "Really?" Yang Zhangdong asked again. Seeing Xiong San nodded seriously, he exclaimed in surprise, "How is that possible?" "Yes, how is that possible?" 10 minutes ago, Xiong San and the others also thought the same. Back to just now, Xiong Air was ready to have a fair fight with Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit's strength is really good. Xiong Air's one finger is still too big. The two shook hands and waited for Xiong Da's order and began to exert force. Xiong Air's strength was at an advantage at first. He used his whole palm and exerted more force. Poplar Fruit was suppressed for a while and his arm began to tilt towards his side. Those who have arm wrestled before know that if the other person tilts at an angle first, it will be difficult to make a comeback because this kind of force is more uncomfortable. Poplar Fruit gritted his teeth and resisted. The muscles of his arm gradually swelled and became bigger than before. Xiong Air also clearly felt that Poplar Fruit's strength continued to increase. Although it was somewhat slow, it made him feel that something was wrong. "Ah!" Xiong Air shouted louder than before. Qi came out of his dantian and a fresh force rushed from his palm to Poplar Fruit's wrist. However, Poplar Fruit stubbornly resisted and did not let Xiong Air press it. "Ah!" Xiong Air shouted again. This time, the increase in strength was not as big, and the effect was not obvious. Poplar Fruit's strength was still increasing. After 2 outbursts, Bear 2's strength was somewhat lacking. Unexpectedly, Bear 2 was slowly pushed back to its original position by Poplar Fruit. And this time, Xiong Air could no longer find the advantage he had just now. Of course, Poplar Fruit's strength was not limitless. When he returned to his original position, the veins on his head bulged. His strength had reached its peak. Now, it was time to see who had more stamina to last until the other party ran out of strength. In fact, Xiong Air's strength was slowly weakening. He was in a deadlock with Poplar Fruit for half a minute. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore and was pushed down by Poplar Fruit. Hoo! Poplar Fruit and Bramble were both gasping for air. They had been holding their breaths for almost a minute. If he didn't gasp for air, he wouldn't be human. F***ck. Yang Zhengdong didn't know what to say. The stimulation he received today was off the charts. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said modestly, Brother Xiong arm wrestled with Brother Xiong San first, and then he arm wrestled with me. If we were to really compete, I wouldn't be able to win. The five of them chatted downstairs for a while. He Wanjua came down with Ji Xiaoyan behind him. Poplar Fruit, let your sister-in-law take care of Kiki. I'll take you to play with guns. He Wanjua said loudly after waking up. He didn't feel tipsy at all. Guns. Poplar Fruit's eyes lit up. The main event was finally here. Now that he had returned to the barracks, what he was looking forward to the most was the firearms that he Wanjua had mentioned to him before. What's the activity? Meng Sonhua ran over and asked happily. However, when he heard that they were going to the shooting range, he ran away. Only his voice echoed, I want to spend time with my family. You guys have fun. Now you're thinking about your family. You're too funny. Yang Zhengdong laughed. Forget it. I won't force him to practice shooting today. I'll teach him a lesson later. He Wanjua laughed. Are you guys coming? Of course. Yang Zhengdong laughed. Guns are my strong suit, not my punches and kicks. We'll go and have a look too. It's the holidays anyway. We have nothing to do anyway. Bramble and the others looked at each other and nodded. Poplar Fruit handed Kiki to Ji Xiaoyan and said softly, Sister-in-law, I'll leave Kiki to you. If she wakes up, bring her to me or give me a call. Kiki will cry when she wakes up. If I'm not here, no one will be able to comfort her. After that, He Wanjua led them to the shooting range. As they walked, He Wanjua asked, Poplar Fruit, what gun do you want to play with? Poplar Fruit said excitedly, Barrett. AWP. Hearing that, everyone was stunned. Yang Zhengdong laughed. They're both sniper rifles. Brother Poplar Fruit, your hobby is the same as mine. No wonder we're from the same family. Poplar Fruit smiled embarrassedly. When I play games, I always use sniper rifles. I've never seen one before. That's why I want to try a real gun. There aren't any foreign guns here. He Wanjua laughed. You won't be able to play with these two guns today. However, Yang Zhengdong has a collection. Next time, I'll bring you to the base. You can ask Yang Zhengdong to let you try it out. Bring Brother Poplar Fruit to see our domestic guns. Big Bear said in a muffled voice. Our AMR-2 is about the same as the Barrett. Thus, when they arrived at the shooting range, everyone ran to the outdoor area. After that, the range manager brought in a few boxes and placed them on the table one by one. Yang Zhengdong could not wait to open the biggest box. Opening the box, a set of matte gun parts were neatly placed on a cotton mat. Yang Zhengdong lovingly stroked every part, but his intoxicated expression was a little exaggerated. Here we go again. Bramble chuckled at the side. What do you know? Yang Zhengdong said without turning his head. The AMR-2 is simply the most perfect piece of art in the world. The empty gun only weighs 9.8 kilograms. The stock is a foldable built-in support bar. The length and height can be adjusted. When folded, the total length can be 1.23 meters. The maximum length can be 1.42 meters. 12. 7 by 108 mm bullets, 5 single-row magazines, effective range of 1.5 kilometers. This gun has a strong penetrative power. Even if the enemy is hiding behind a wall, it can still penetrate through and kill them. And this kind of bullet, as long as it bites, no matter which part of the body is hit, if the bleeding is not stopped immediately, death is certain. While speaking, Yang Zhengdong used his hand to make a throat-slitting gesture under his neck. Everyone rolled their eyes. Only Poplar Fruit still looked at him with admiration. Quickly put the gun on. He Wanjua laughed and scolded. He picked up the magazine, took out a few golden bullets from another small box, and pressed them in. Poplar Fruit estimated that the bullets were as long as a palm and as thick as a finger. Yang Zhengdong shrugged, picked up the various parts, and began to assemble them. His movements were not fast, but it was enough for Poplar Fruit to see every movement clearly. Finally, with a snap, he pulled the bolt. The AMR 212, the 7mm sniper rifle, was assembled. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 207. The AMR-2 was considered a very large firearm, but in the hands of Yang Zhengdong, who had a broad and strong body, it actually felt small. He folded the butt of the gun and held it with one hand. Then, he lifted it up with a relaxed look on his face. Xiong-Er looked at him and muttered, "What's there to be proud of? It's more fun to carry a Vulcan cannon." In appearance, the AMR-2 was similar to a Barrett cannon. It made Poplar Fruit's blood boil. He couldn't wait to play with it. "Don't worry, I'll show you first." Yang Zhengdong laughed. He took the magazine and loaded it. Then, he walked to the pit and lay down. Poplar Fruit followed behind him. Yang Zhengdong explained the precautions while he opened the gun stock and the stand. He placed it firmly on the ground. "The recoil of the gun is quite strong. Don't hurt your shoulder later." Then, Yang Zhengdong looked at the target through the optical scope. When he pulled the trigger, Poplar Fruit heard a bang sound. The gun recoiled and a bullet shot out. There wasn't a loud noise like he expected when he fired the gun. The noise reduction of this gun was quite good. Yang Zhengdong pulled the gun back, changed the target, and emptied the magazine. Then, he stood up reluctantly. The result was displayed on the LED screen above his head. At a distance of 1,000 meters, all 5 shots hit the bullseye. No wonder he was a soldier from the Special Forces. "You try too," Yang Zhengdong said to Poplar Fruit as he laid down on the ground and adjusted the gun. Poplar Fruit's hands were already thirsty. When he heard Yang Zhengdong's words, he walked up excitedly. He didn't care if the ground was dirty or not. He just laid down on the ground. "Hold your hand here." Yang Zhengdong was right beside him, teaching him step by step. When Poplar Fruit learned how to hold the gun, Yang Zhengdong picked up a telescope and observed. "Wind speed." Before he could finish, Poplar Fruit pulled the trigger. The gunshot echoed in the shooting range, but the target did not move. Yang Zhengdong was stunned. Poplar Fruit felt that the recoil of this sniper rifle was greater than he had imagined. In the past, when he played games on the computer, there was no concept of recoil. All he had to do was aim and shoot. But now, with a shake of the muzzle, the rifle recoiled. The butt of the rifle hit Poplar Fruit's shoulder. Even with Poplar Fruit's body, he felt some pain. Missed. Poplar Fruit saw that the target he was aiming at was still there. It was very different from the scene where Yang Zhengdong had shot it. He asked uneasily, "A sniper rifle doesn't aim in a straight line." Yang Zhengdong was a little speechless. "I didn't even finish talking and you shot." "Of course I missed." "Don't pull the bolt yet. Let me finish." Yang Zhengdong patiently explained to Poplar Fruit the effects of wind speed, gravity, and other factors on bullets, and taught him how to adjust them. "So that's how it is." Poplar Fruit suddenly realized that playing with a sniper rifle in real life and playing with it on the computer were two different concepts. The way to play was completely different. Looking at the huge object in his hand, Poplar Fruit thought to himself, "Even brother Yang Zhengdong can't play with flash and jump sniping, right? That's bullshit. After collecting his emotions, Poplar Fruit pulled the bolt, ejected the shell, and aimed again. Poplar Fruit adjusted the aiming position according to the wind speed and distance according to Yang Zhengdong's tips. He slowly aimed for a long time before finally aiming. "This time I should be able to hit it." Poplar Fruit didn't dare to say that he could hit the bullseye, but in his heart, he felt that since he had already aimed like this, hitting the target shouldn't be a problem, right? Shoot. His shoulder was hit again. But when he looked again, the target was still standing there calmly. Poplar Fruit was going crazy. He was shooting at a 500-meter target. Compared to Yang Zhengdong's 1,000-meter target, it was half the distance, but how come he still didn't hit it? When you fired, you didn't control it well. Yang Zhengdong explained. The muzzle shook slightly. You have to know that for a sniper rifle, a slight deviation in angle can result in a deviation of several meters or even more than 10 meters when you reach the target. Again. Poplar Fruit didn't believe it. He pulled the gun again and aimed. This time, Poplar Fruit took a longer time. Even when he fired, he held the handle tightly to prevent it from shaking. At this point, he should be able to hit it, right? That was what he thought, but reality was cruel. After the gunshot, the target still didn't move. It stood there mockingly. Don't hold it too tightly. If you hold it too tightly, your muscles will become stiff. You have to figure it out yourself. Yang Zhengdong said, also, you have to get used to the recoil. The recoil is also one of the reasons why you can't hit it. Poplar Fruit also knew that the recoil was troublesome. Every time he fired, his shoulder would become numb, and he wouldn't be able to control the gun properly. After emptying 2 magazines, Poplar Fruit still couldn't hit the target. Xiong San wiped the sweat from the afternoon sun and thought to himself, playing with guns isn't enough. If everything is unexpected, then he'll really be a monster. After Poplar Fruit stood up, He Wanjua smiled and patted his shoulder. He comforted him and said, snipers are trained by a lot of bullets. This is your first time using a gun, so it's normal for you to shoot like this. Also, the AMR-2 is not easy to control. You can ask Xiong De and the rest. They also can't shoot well. Poplar Fruit knew that Xiong San was comforting him. Even if the soldiers in the special forces weren't the best at sniping, they wouldn't miss all 10 shots like him. Xiong San's discomfort was actually due to the difference in his mentality. In the past, when he was playing games in front of the computer, he could use a sniper rifle to perfection. But now, he couldn't even hit the target with a real gun. He suddenly changed from a godlike existence to a complete newbie. It's not a good feeling. Poplar Fruit didn't continue to play with the AMR-2. He Wanjua gave him a smaller Type 88 sniper rifle. The recoil of the AMR-2 was too strong, and Poplar Fruit didn't have any training. If he played with it for too long, he might need to apply medicine on his shoulder tomorrow. Poplar Fruit also couldn't play with the small caliber sniper rifle. He fired 2 magazines and 20 bullets, but only 1 bullet hit the target. It was too frustrating. Seeing that Poplar Fruit couldn't even hit a fixed target, He Wanjua didn't mention moving targets. Poplar Fruit couldn't continue his legend of creating miracles with the sniper rifle. As for the automatic rifle, Poplar Fruit still couldn't play well with it. Slow down, slow down. He Wanjua helplessly shouted in Poplar Fruit's ears. The Type 95 automatic rifle in Poplar Fruit's hands was like a machine gun. The moment he pulled the trigger, it would stop moving. A magazine of bullets would be shaken and poured out, but it didn't even touch the edge of the target. Don't do a combo shot. Shoot 1 bullet at a time. He Wanjua's mouth was dry from all the talking. But when Poplar Fruit touched the automatic rifle, his body was stiff. In the end, He Wanjua gave up. He couldn't teach Xiong San anything, so he just let him play by himself. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, please use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 208. After shooting a few bullets, Poplar Fruit felt that the automatic rifle was a bit boring. The recoil of the automatic rifle was not small, so he could control it. However, in the game and in reality, Poplar Fruit felt that the automatic rifle did not have the charm to attract him. Therefore, he put down the Type 95 automatic rifle and followed He Wanjua to the indoor shooting range. A handgun is a weapon for close-range self-defense and attack. He Wanjua picked up a handgun and said to Poplar Fruit, in actual combat, it is not only the shooting accuracy that is tested, but also the quick reaction ability. He turned to Xiong San and said, Xiong San, you go to the simulation room and perform for Poplar Fruit." "Yes." Xiong-san replied neatly. From the box on the table, he took out a black handgun with a 5-pointed star on the handle. After checking the magazine, he held it in his right hand and put his left hand under his right hand and walked to a door. The door was opened by the people in the control room, and Xiong-san calmly walked in. QSZ-92 semi-automatic pistol. He Wanjua gently waved the handgun in his hand that was exactly the same as Xiong-san's and said, "The former Type 54 pistol, which is the black star pistol that often appears in Hong Kong movies, is the predecessor of this gun." He pressed a button on the big screen on the wall, and on the screen appeared Xiong-san, who had just walked into the room. 3 cameras were recording his every move from different directions. This simulation room is designed to have a close combat scene with the bandits. "You can see Xiong-san's performance," he Wanjua said. In the simulation room, there were various cardboard walls, a bit like a maze, and the environment was very complicated. Xiong-san was expressionless as he slowly walked forward. The handgun was extended forward, and the muzzle was slightly lowered. His eyes looked around, and he was very careful to observe the situation around him. Suddenly, a bandit-like target popped out. Xiong-san's reaction was very, very fast. The moment the target popped out, he finished turning around and raising his hand. It was completely different from his bloated body. 2 shots, very decisively hit the enemy's forehead and chest. The target fell down. "Beautiful." Xiong-er waved his hand and shouted. He immediately realized that he had disturbed someone and scratched his head in embarrassment. The targets that popped out were not necessarily bandits. There were also civilians. This required judgment. Xiong-san had never accidentally killed a civilian. His judgment was very accurate every time. Sometimes, there would even be 2 targets where the criminals were hugging the civilians. He was actually able to accurately shoot off the criminals' heads in an extremely short period of time and ensure that the civilians were not harmed at all. Poplar Fruit's palms were sweating as he watched. The criminals appeared more and more frequently, and Xiong-san's pistol was almost out of bullets. He had already counted in his heart. When he fired the second last bullet and the last bullet was loaded, his left hand dropped down and took out a magazine from his waist at lightning speed. At the same time, his right hand made a motion of retracting the magazine. The empty magazine fell with the force of gravity, and the new magazine just happened to catch up. Ka-cha! It connected seamlessly. With his super-fast reaction speed, Poplar Fruit saw very clearly that Xiong-san's action of reloading was like a butterfly flying through flowers. It was really cool. Even the people in the movies couldn't be as fast as him. After 1 round, Xiong-san walked out with the pistol and the empty magazine. It was as if he wasn't the one who had just played out a thrilling scene. This was the demeanor of a master. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but sigh. Seeing Xiong-san's extraordinary performance, Yang Zhangdong didn't want to be outdone. He went to the side of the table, picked up a pistol, and said to Poplar Fruit, "Poplar Fruit, I'll show you how to dismantle a gun." He only saw his 2 hands cross and rub, and the pistol all fell apart. Poplar Fruit didn't even understand what he did. In less than 3 seconds, the pistol became a pile of parts on the table. Yang Zhangdong smiled, holding the spring, waved at Poplar Fruit, and said, "Do you want to learn?" Without waiting for the stunned Poplar Fruit to answer, he Wanjua slapped Yang Zhangdong's head and jokingly scolded, "Learn what? I brought Poplar Fruit here today to play with guns, not to learn how to dismantle guns." He handed Poplar Fruit a protective headset and said, "Xiong-san's performance just now was just for you to enjoy. This is the result of years of training. I'm not asking you to learn this today. We'll go there and play with a fixed target." Yang Gua and he Wanjua reluctantly looked at the dejected Yang Zhangdong as he began to reassemble the pistol. Yang Gua and he Wanjua smiled and agreed. He Wanjua signaled Poplar Fruit to take off the headset and listen to him first. When you hold the pistol, you must not point the muzzle at people. Whether or not the safety is turned on, it's best to keep the muzzle pointing down. He handed the Type 92 pistol in his hand to Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit somewhat fondly touched the texture of the pistol. Of course, he listened to he Wanjua's words. No matter what he looked at, the muzzle was always pointing down. This is the safety. When you pull it to this position, lock the hammer and the sleeve at the same time. At this time, the hammer can't be pressed down, and the trigger can't be pulled. This ensures that you won't accidentally fire. When you pull it to this position, then you can fire. He Wanjua carefully explained to Poplar Fruit. Try firing a few shots. He Wanjua encouraged. Poplar Fruit put on the headset, copied Xiong San's posture, raised the pistol, thumb turned on the safety, aimed, and fired. The sound of the gun was quite loud, but the recoil was not big. Poplar Fruit had experienced the previous large-caliber sniper rifle, so he was prepared. Slow down, slow down. He Wanjua pulled down Poplar Fruit's headset and shouted. Poplar Fruit turned around. His hand was still in the same position. He Wanjua was scared and quickly pressed down on Poplar Fruit's muzzle. Sorry. Poplar Fruit was very ashamed as he pressed down on the muzzle, turned off the safety, and fired 2 shots. He had forgotten He Wanjua's advice. You're firing too fast. He Wanjua pointed out, you haven't gotten used to the rhythm of this gun. You don't even know how to adjust. You're firing too fast. Where is the muzzle? Poplar Fruit thought for a moment. It was true. Although he could control the recoil, every time he fired, the muzzle jumped up. In the end, his gun was cocked. And your hand here. He Wanjua let Poplar Fruit repeat the previous action, and then helped Poplar Fruit adjust it step by step. It's a little stiff. Relax a little. The grip is not to be held tightly. If you hold it tightly, you'll jump left or right when you fire. It should be like this. The base of your palm should be slightly forward, and the second joint of your middle finger, ring finger, and little finger should be along the axis of the gun body and hold the front of the grip together. Don't straighten your right arm. The place between your thumb and index finger should be facing the back of the grip, so that the axis of the gun body is on the extension of the axis of your forearm. Yes, that's it. Relax a little. Let's try again. He Wanjua was still very satisfied with Poplar Fruit's posture adjustment. As a person who held a gun for the first time, it was not easy to control his muscles so accurately. Author's note, I've dug a lot of holes in the beginning. The story will get more and more exciting later. Begging for monthly votes. Begging for recommendations. Everyone, please use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 209. Poplar Fruit had practiced internal martial arts and Tai Chi for a long time, especially the slow training that he had figured out himself. All the muscles in his body would be mobilized during the practice. Now, Poplar Fruit's control of his body had reached the realm of minute detail. He Wanjua only needed to give a little guidance, and Poplar Fruit was able to do it well. Needless to say, the aiming method of 3 points and 1 line was obvious. After Poplar Fruit adjusted, he tried to fire a shot. The target was 25 meters away. With Poplar Fruit's eyesight, he could clearly see a small hole in it. Did I hit it? Poplar Fruit pulled off his headphones and asked in surprise. The previous sniper rifle had been too big of a blow to him. Now that he had hit the target, it was like winning the lottery. It made him ecstatic. Yes. He Wanjua nodded with a smile. He patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder and said, Did you raise the muzzle? You don't have to raise it too high when aiming. This is not a sniper rifle. It's only a few dozen meters. Just aim and fire. Good. Yang Gua, who was encouraged, replied in a deep voice. He took a deep breath and fired again. Bang. After the second shot, Poplar Fruit saw another small hole in the target. This small hole was closer to the bullseye than the previous one. It had to be said that a pistol was easier to control than a sniper rifle. With Poplar Fruit's ability to control his body, he only needed to spend 3 more bullets to find the feeling of aiming. Bang! Another shot. Poplar Fruit clearly saw a hole in the center of the target that he was aiming at. He waved his left fist and said happily, Yes. Good shot. He Wanjua praised, but Poplar Fruit didn't hear his words. Poplar Fruit didn't pull off his headphones and continued to fire. Poplar Fruit felt that he had really grasped the feeling of aiming with this gun. Sure enough, after adjusting the Poplar Fruit, every shot hit the bullseye. Every shot hit the bullseye. This result was not strange. Needless to say, Yang Zhengdong, the sharpshooter, Big Bear and the other two were also playing. Almost every shot they made was 100 points. Moreover, the three of them were playing with a 50-meter target. However, this was a rare occurrence for Poplar Fruit. The Poplar Fruit was playing with sniper rifles and automatic rifles. Their comprehension was relatively poor, and they were no different from ordinary soldiers. He Wenjue had already given up. In terms of pistols, Poplar Fruit had once again performed a miracle. He Wenjue had never seen anyone who touched a gun for the first time being able to hit the bullseye after a few shots. The shock in his heart was already written all over his face. Click. There was only a crisp sound as the firing pin hit the gun. Poplar Fruit realized that he had already emptied the magazine. He Wenjue handed a loaded magazine to Poplar Fruit and taught him how to load it. Then he said, "You're shooting very well now. You can try to shoot faster." Poplar Fruit's shooting speed was too slow. Every shot took him almost half a minute to adjust. If this was a battlefield, he would have already died. Poplar Fruit also knew this problem. After he Wenjue said it, he nodded. The pistol was raised again. Poplar Fruit took a deep breath and fired the first shot. The first shot hit the bullseye. There was no suspense. The second shot. Poplar Fruit didn't continue to adjust this time. He released the trigger and pulled it again. The third shot, the fourth shot. He stopped. The second shot was a little off. By the fourth shot, it had drifted out of the bullseye range. He Wenjue knew that every novice would encounter such a problem. After all, the recoil of the pistol would cause the muzzle to deviate slightly. If one didn't know how to adjust, it would be further and further. It's okay. Continue shooting. Feel the direction of the pistol's vibration after you shoot and adjust it yourself. For example, when you shoot, press your hand down. You have to be fast. Don't drag it out. He Wenjue said. Shooting could be taught, and there were some experiences that could be used as reference. However, the best way was to explore it yourself. This was how sharpshooters usually trained. The direction of the gun's vibration. Poplar Fruit silently said in his heart. He adjusted his breathing and focused on feeling the changes in his hand muscles when he fired the gun. Poplar Fruit tried to fire 2 shots and felt it carefully. Unconsciously, Poplar Fruit's breathing began to adjust to the long, deep, and slow breathing when he practiced martial arts. This state was very strange. Poplar Fruit could clearly feel the subtle changes in his body and the surroundings. Even the pistol in his hand had become an extension of his body. The moment the bullet left the barrel, he could feel the trajectory of the bullet. It was amazing. After Poplar Fruit fired the second shot, he stood there in a daze for a long time. He Wenjue didn't know what had happened, but he didn't disturb Poplar Fruit. It was best to let him think about it himself. Poplar Fruit began to have confidence in his shooting. He could feel the trajectory of the bullet after it left the barrel. Then, he could adjust the trajectory himself to make the bullet hit where he wanted it to hit. Poplar Fruit immediately tried it. Under this breathing state, he fired continuously. The first shot hit the target, the second shot was a little off, and the third shot was still a little off. From the fourth shot onwards, every shot hit the bullseye. Until he missed again, Poplar Fruit had hit the same spot. This feeling was too good. It was as good as eating ice cream in the summer. Poplar Fruit felt all the pores on his body open up. He Wenjue didn't say much. He just passed another magazine to Poplar Fruit. He wanted to see how long Poplar Fruit's magic could last. This time, with 20 bullets, Poplar Fruit actually hit the bullseye. Moreover, the shooting speed was very fast. The bang 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 sounds were almost continuous. It attracted Big Brother Xiong, Yang Zhengdong, and the others couldn't help but gather around to watch. "How many?" asked Yang Zhengdong. It seems that he hit all of them. Xiong said with his eyes wide open. The results were quickly sent over. All full marks. Try to shoot with one hand. Wanjua decided to try Poplar Fruit again to see how much potential he had. Okay. Poplar Fruit changed the magazine and held the gun in his right hand. Yang Zhangdong even ran up to him to give him pointers on standing and holding posture. In the first 5 shots, Poplar Fruit didn't shoot well. He kept reloading to find the feeling. The 5th shot was very close to the bullseye. In the next 15 shots, Poplar Fruit didn't disappoint Wanjua. Every bullet hit the bullseye. After shooting with his right hand, he switched to his left hand. Poplar Fruit's left hand took a longer time to adjust. However, as long as he found the feeling, all the bullets would hit where he pointed. Yang Zhangdong excitedly ran down to compete with Poplar Fruit. It was a competition of speed and accuracy. Both of them were very accurate. However, Poplar Fruit's reaction speed was faster. In the end, he won by 1 second. Big Brother Xiong and the others' jaws almost dropped. Wanjua didn't know what to say. Encouragement? He felt that he wasn't as good as Poplar Fruit's pistol. It seemed that the title of monster was still reserved for Poplar Fruit. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 210. Poplar Fruit was having fun in the military camp, but he didn't know that his good friend, Zhang Yujie, had encountered some trouble because of him. Li Zichao. Zhang Yujie clenched her teeth and walked out of Dongxin Publishing while holding her phone. There was a Ferrari parked in front of the door. A handsome guy wearing sunglasses was holding a bouquet of flowers, leaning against the front of the car with an evil smile on his face. His clothes were very tasteful and expensive. From head to toe, there wasn't a piece of cloth that was less than 10,000 yuan. Zhang Yujie's clothes weren't bad either. She was wearing a Givenchy women's suit with a little curly lace and a pair of diamond-studded high heels on her feet. If one only looked at her clothes and her ear-length short hair, one would think that she was an elegant office lady. However, her every move ruined her image. I already said that I have no interest in you. Please don't bother me again. Zhang Yujie snatched the flowers from the handsome guy named Li Zichao and threw them at him. Her bad temper was completely different from when she was in front of Poplar Fruit. When Zhang Taiming complained about his sister's character to Poplar Fruit, he was actually telling the truth. Hey! Don't hit me! Li Zichao stepped back again and again. He put his hands in front of him to block. He wasn't paying attention and his sunglasses were knocked off by Zhang Yujie. She then stepped on it and broke it. Get lost. Zhang Yujie snorted. She threw the broken flowers on the ground and turned to leave. Yujie. Li Zichao suddenly stood up and shouted, "Our engagement was set by Grandpa when we were born. Do you want to break the engagement?" Zhang Yujie turned her head and said with a frown, "I won't marry you. You can give up on that idea. I'll talk to my grandpa myself. Just because my grandfather passed away early, your Zheng family wants to break off the engagement? Let me tell you, our Li clan is not to be trifled with. A starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Marrying me is your best choice." Li Zichao said coldly as he patted the petals off his sleeve. The Li family and the Zheng family were both big families 20 years ago. At that time, the Li family was even bigger and ranked at the top in the capital. Old Master Li and Old Master Zheng were comrades in arms. The two of them were very close, and the relationship between the two families was a close political alliance. At that time, Zhang Yujie and Li Zichao were only 2 or 3 years old. Being teased by the adults, they also happily said that they wanted to get married. Old Master Li smiled and said, "Why don't we set a date for them? When Xiao Chao grows up, he can marry Xiao Yujie." No matter how good their relationship was, it couldn't be compared to a marriage alliance. That was why Li Zichao said that the engagement was set. Zhang Yujie's frown deepened. She turned around and looked at Li Zichao seriously. I will decide my own marriage. No one can force me. I don't want to marry you, it has nothing to do with Grandpa Li. It's because I don't like you. In the past you were too weak. Now, you came back from abroad and have some bad habits. You have become even more annoying, so I won't marry you. No matter who forces me, it's useless. After old Master Li passed away, the Li family began to lose a stabilizing force in politics, and the younger generation did not have many prospects. They did not even have a high-ranking official. If it were not for old Master Zheng's help many times, they would have collapsed long ago. Now, their former political enemies were all eyeing their family covetously. Old Master Zhang could help them once for the sake of old Master Li's friendship, but could he help them forever? Their only hope was to start with Zhang Yujie. Zhang Yujie was the eldest daughter of the Zheng clan. As long as the marriage alliance was successful, the Li clan could find a backer that they could rely on. At least, they could ensure that they wouldn't be uprooted. They could slowly cultivate their own talents and wait for an opportunity to make a comeback. However, last year, the Li clan mentioned that they would hold a grand engagement ceremony. If it weren't for Zhang Yujie's fierce opposition, this good thing would have been done at that time. Old Master Zhang was the head of the family, but he had only reached the level of a minister. To be honest, if it was just him alone, the Zheng clan wouldn't become stronger and stronger. The Zheng clan continued to rise because of Zhang Yujie's father, Zhang Rongxin. Zhang Rong was only 50 years old in the new year, but he was already a senior official in a province in the north. It was said that because of his outstanding achievements this year, he would be transferred back to Beijing in less than 2 years. At that time, he would probably be the mayor of Beijing. His future was immeasurable. That was why Li Zichao wanted to marry Zhang Yujie so badly. He knew that if he missed this opportunity, the Li family would be gone in the future, and his days of debauchery would also be over. Otherwise, why would he chase after Zhang Yujie, the great demon who had given him so many painful memories when he was young? For this reason, he returned to the capital immediately after graduation to pursue Zhang Yujie. Originally, he had planned to slowly move Zhang Yujie with romance, but after he received a piece of news, he could no longer remain calm. Is it because of poplar fruit? Li Zichao's eyes were bloodshot as he asked hatefully. Zhang Yujie was about to go back, but when she heard his words, she suddenly turned her head, stared at Li Zichao, and asked, "Why are you talking about him?" Haha. Li Zichao shook his head, sneered, and said, "If I hadn't made Tai Ming drunk, I'm afraid I wouldn't have known that my woman would be taken away by a pauper with a family. This brother of mine, I'll teach him a lesson when we get back." Zhang Yujie thought angrily and said coldly, "It has nothing to do with him. Also, when did I become your woman? Can you not be so disgusting?" "It has nothing to do with him?" Li Zichao slapped the hood of the car and said, "If it has nothing to do with him, would you go to Yongcheng from time to go on dates with him? Would you find a job for him to earn money and make him famous on the news? Would you go with him to America to have fun again? I really don't understand, why would you fall for him? He's just a poor bastard from the countryside. He has no money, no power, and he already has a child with someone else. What else can he give you? Is it because of his beautiful face?" Li Zichao asked loudly. Fortunately, Dongxin Publishing was located in a remote area, and no one came to watch. Zhang Yujie sneered and said, "It doesn't matter if it's him or not. What right do you have to tell me what to do? What does it have to do with you what I like to do, and what kind of person I like to love?" "Wake up!" Li Zichao shouted. "People like us can never have our own love. It's because of this that your father agreed to marry you to me 20 years ago. Why do you have to drag an ordinary person into this?" "Li Zichao, let me tell you." Zhang Yujie pointed at Li Zichao and said, "My love is not for you to teach me. Even if all the men in the world are dead, I, Zhang Yujie, will not like you, and I will not marry you." After that, she swung her hand and walked away, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. "Please use your votes to support me. Greater than over equal to *. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.